Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Next Gen Racing Proto GT3 Championship as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform known only as iRacing, available on PC. This series, sponsored by Apex Racing Academy and IMB Raceware, marks round number 9 tonight. That's right, we are now 9 rounds in out of the 12-round calendar, and we are back after the second of our mid-season breaks to kick off all the racing action once again as we move into the final third of the season. There's no more breaks. It's now 4 rounds of racing over 4 weeks to determine who our champions are, and we kick that procedure off tonight at the legendary Silverstone circuit in the United Kingdom, and more on the circuit in due course. But first, let's address our race schedule for tonight. Times in British summertime, that's BST or UTC +1. In just under 14 minutes time, we'll be getting underway with the qualifying session, which will last 20 minutes. That will kick off at 8 o'clock to determine our grid order for the purposes of race number 1, after which we'll be going straight into race 1, our 15-minute sprint race that will kick off at 20 past 8. After that, we've taken a brief breather before returning at approximately 9 o'clock for the build-up to the feature race, the second of our 2 races tonight, and that'll be a 60-minute race. Whereas the first race is all about getting to the front and staying at the lead of the pack and perhaps getting the fastest lap as well to get the maximum possible points. Meanwhile, as in the case of the feature, it's about pace but also about strategic nuance with that all-important mandatory pit stop. Now, tonight's broadcast is being brought to you live via free media platforms for your viewing pleasure. Firstly, if you are a YouTube user, you can go to the official Next Gen Racing YouTube channel. Alternatively, if you are a Facebook user, you could go to facebook.com/groups/Next Gen Racing. Or last but not least, if you are a Twitch user, you can go to twitch.tv/TX141 and tune in there. And as for who TX141 is, well, that's me, your host, broadcaster and commentator. My name is Paul Walsh, also known as TX141 or Britain a Spit, and I'll be bringing you all of your racing action tonight and indeed for the rest of the season. And I've been in the commentary box since the start of the season, and what a championship campaign it has been across the numerous driver classes. classes. And one thing for tonight, and indeed for the rest of the season, we should point out, it is the case we are no longer covering Lobby 1 on a Wednesday and Lobby 2 on a Friday. It's the case that both lobbies have been merged in order to bring the driver numbers back together, given that a number of drivers and teams have had to retire from the series due to personal circumstances. So we've merged the two lobbies together, and that means the race in action will be thick, fast and frantic, because we have 6 classes of driver making their way around each and every circuit now, and with those championship points coming down to the wire, they'll be ever more crucial, and knowing when to battle and when to let another driver go is going to be ever more important as the season comes down to its conclusion. Now, of course, this series is sponsored by Apex Racing Academy and also IMB Racewear. It's only appropriate that we introduce our title sponsors, and we start off with Apex Racing Academy. So who are Apex Racing Academy, I hear you ask? Well, they're not just a setup shop. They're dedicated to making you better at iRacing with services, access to drivers and features not found on other driving schools and academies. Working with them will see you connected with pros like never before. You can learn how to prepare for a race, build setups, improve lap times and understand how to use telemetry tools such as VRS. And every week they host multiple sessions where members can join the coaches and take advantage of group coaching sessions. And in partnership with SDK Gaming, all the data provided will be automatically synchronized directly to your PC. There's no need to go hunting for setup, replay or ghost files. The data is right there when you turn the simulator on. Interested? Then why not sign up now at apexracingac.com. That website again, apexracingac.com. And of course, Apex Racing Academy, one of our 2 title sponsors, and we're grateful to continue our partnership with Apex Racing Academy, dated all the way back to the GT3 Championship Season 1 on iRacing, as hosted by NXTGEN. And Apex Racing Academy have been helping us out in the background with organisation of this series, and also contributed to the prize pool for our drivers within the Apex Racing Academy classes. In particular, to the GT3 classes, so the GT3 Pros, the GT3 AMs, whereby there are Apex Racing Academy yearly subscriptions up for grabs for our drivers who take the championship crowns in the Pro and the AM classes. As for our LMP Pro class, it is the case that they'll be just having the cash prize pool, the value of which to be confirmed, and that being provided via NextGen Racing. But we come from one of our title sponsors to the other, and that is IMB Racewear. And IMB Racewear delivers racewear for both sim and real-life racers, which enables the racer to make the impact they always wanted. What sets IMB Racewear apart from the competition is that their racewear prides itself on individuality, as it is designed for you, by you. This means that each product is fully customizable, unlike your typical off-the-shelf racewear products. Whether you're looking for racing gloves, racing shoes or team clothing, there are no limits to levels of customization available. So if you want to know more and get your hands on your own bespoke racewear, be sure to head to imbracewear.com today for more information. That website again, imbracewear.com. And we're grateful to continue our partnership at NextGen with IMB Racewear, dating back multiple years now. And indeed, IMB Racewear has been a stalwart of the partnership of the NextGen Racing Programme. And in terms of their contribution to this series, they've helped us out with the background organisation and have also contributed to the prize pool for the GT3 class in the IMB Racewear driver classes, whereby there are a set of custom gloves up for grabs for our GT3 class winners in both the Pro and the AM classes. And this goes alongside the cash prize pool, which is to be confirmed, as is pocketed, not pocketed, I should say, as is pulled by NextGen Racing, and it is the case of the LMP2 AM class, which was previously in the IMB Racewear lobby. Their prize pool is made up of a singular cash prize pool, the value of which is to be confirmed, but coming and provided by NextGen Racing. Well, that's our title sponsors introduced, and thank you to them. And now we must come to our calendar, and we can see here it is the case that now, moving on to round number 9, we are almost halfway down the right hand side of the picture. It is the 15th of June, and that means it is time for Silverstone, with a brief trip to the British Isles. Prior to that, we were at Spa, of course, a week ago, well, not a week ago, 2 weeks ago, I should say, for the second of our 3 2-hour super endurance rounds. And my goodness, the race at Spa-Francorchamps in Belgium was absolutely phenomenal. Indeed, in both lobbies, it was the case the racing went down to the wire, and some absolutely brilliant battles, which we'll remember for a long time. After Silverstone this week, it'll be the case that in a week's time we'll be headed to Japan, in particular Suzuka on the 22nd of June, and then returning to the European continent for the penultimate round at the Nürburgring Grand Prix Vidal circuit on the 29th of June, before then making our way to the French circuit of Circuit de la Sarthe, or you know it most colloquially as Le Mans, for the second and third, well, it is the case, the third, I should say, of our 2-hour super endurance rounds, and that will be on the 6th of July, and the racing action there is sure to be absolutely brilliant. If there's one thing we can guarantee, is that Le Mans delivers every time we visit it, and what a place to host the finale. And well, prior to these rounds, it was the case that we started off our European tour all the way back on the 11th of May at the Red Bull Ring. Before all that, in round number 1, we kicked off the tour of the United States to the North American continent at Watkins Glen on the 6th of April. A far cry now from where we are today. And speaking of the here and now, we come on to our championship standings, and we've got 6 championship standings to cover, plus the team's championship, so let's get to it. We start off with the LMP PRO class, sponsored by Apex Racing Academy, also known as the LMP ARA group. And it is the case that going into this round, Chris Daines is your championship leader on 374 points, breaking that advantage well open now, and almost the best part of 90 points clear of major contender Gaz Williams. It is the case that Chris Daines once again reigning supreme, albeit not picking up the fastest lap at Spa-Francorchamps. And right now it is the case that Chris Daines, if he wins both races tonight and picks up the maximum points haul, he will have all but secured the LMP2 Pro Class Championship with 3 rounds to spare, and I do believe that is his target tonight, to try and put this championship to bed before we get to Suzuka. Gaz Williams in that P2 will be mindful of the fact that Jamie Dory still staying and keeping them honest, with a gap of 45 points between the two of them, and it is Dan Skinner and Robert Sudik who complete the top 5 there. Meanwhile, when we come to our LMP2 AM class, as sponsored by IMB Racewear, it is the case that Paul Walton and Stefan Vessels, your 2 major championship contenders in P1, P2 respectively. Last time at Spa-Francorchamps, the racing was thick, fast, and it was a back and forth battle between the two of them for pretty much the entirety of the 2 hours. There was not a moment until the very final last couple of corners where they were separated really more than a second over the course of the lap. And it is the case that Paul Walton leads by an advantage of 21 points, but you can be sure that Stefan Vessels is closing that pace delta between the two of them, and he will be looking to try and take the fight back tonight. Sam Holman in P3, really the best of the rest on 234 points, 24 points clear of Paul Scott, who in turn, Paul Scott, having picked up a good point at Spa-Francorchamps, will need to keep Paul Williams at bay, with the Team Tetra Rouge driver closing down the NXTGEN Racing driver. The two of them only separated by 8 points going into tonight. Then we come to the first of our 2 GT3 Pro classes, and this is the GT3 Pro Apex Racing Academy class, also known as the GT3 Pro ARA group, and it is the case that Carmelo Mettello is now your championship leader after an absolutely dominant run of form at Spa-Francorchamps, and it is the case he picked up the maximum possible points haul, and now 2 points clear of Matthew Hodges. The two of them will be going toe-to-toe, we bet, over the remainder of the season. However, do not count out Gavin Gardner. It is the case that Gardner there in P3 on 231 points, only ahead of Matt Carolina on countback. Gavin Gardner right now really proving to be a bit of a dark horse, and we do wonder how he can get involved in that battle for the championship lead. Meanwhile, Tom Edmonds in P5 on 208 points, unable to take part last time out at Spa-Francorchamps, but we do hope to see his return tonight in order to be able to keep that effective, what is a 5-way battle for the championship lead afloat. Otherwise, it will be to Lee Horn and Eduardo Francochin to try and close up that P5 in due course. Then we look from our GT3 Pro Apex Racing Academy standings to our GT3 Pro IMB Racewear standings. And whilst it says they're provisional in the top right corner of your screen, I believe it is the case they are no longer provisional and they have been confirmed. And in a class that was heavily depleted at Spa-Francorchamps, it is the case that Lucas Amado, in dominant form, led the field from start to finish, and 335 points now. He stands at the top of the standings and has an advantage which is only growing over the rest of his competitors. And if he picks up 2 wins tonight and gets the maximum possible points haul, much like Chris Daines to the LMP2 Pro class, he may just have all but sealed things going into Suzuka. With Gus Franken there in P5, having that second place last time out Spa-Francorchamps and tried to jump ahead of Dirtbouts, Didi Valemi and Jeremy DeBova in due course. And the same with Sean Scooter there in the case, finishing P3 in a very depleted class at Spa-Francorchamps and trying to settle into that rhythm that's eluded him for the majority of the season. We then come to our GT3 AM classes, started off with the Apex Racing Academy class, and it is the case that Matt Emmons on 282 points leads going into this round after a second place finish at Spa-Francorchamps. He is only 10 points ahead of Nigel Stock, who looked to be firmly on course to take the win at Spa-Francorchamps if it were not for a major incident coming through Blanchimont corner, which saw him into the wall and in the end losing vital points. But you can imagine with the two separated by only 10 points, the rivalry will continue, and do not count out Matthew Addy, our winner last time out at Spa, and it is the case he's only 12 points off of Nigel Stock and looking to close up to the two leaders very rapidly, given the fact now from P1 to P3 it is only 22 points of separation. Stuart Taylor in P4. Unfortunately, we will not be seeing Stuart Taylor return to the circuit for the rest of the season due to personal circumstances. He has had to withdraw, and we do wish him well. But Darren Doherty, who's not going to be available this week as he's on holiday, but we're expecting him to be back out on the circuit in a week's time at Suzuka on 168 points there, and he will need to pick up the pieces, given the fact that Sean Cradley Swash, after a brilliant performance at Spa-Francorchamps, now on 154 points in P6, he'll be looking to break into the top 5 tonight. Then we come to our GT3 AM class as sponsored by IMB Racewear, also known as the GT3 AM IMB class, and it is the case we have a two-way battle at the top of the standings. It's Tristan Brega who is leading, albeit after what was a disastrous start to his race at Spa-Francorchamps. It is now the case that Lorenzo Gualtieri is closing that gap rapidly, and the two of them now stand separated by only 23 points. When in fact, doing my maths correctly there, you'd say it's 33 points, and I would agree with you. And Lorenzo Gualtieri there really trying to close down after what was a difficult start to the season, showing a lot of pace but not a consistency compared to Tristan Brega. And how will the two racing team Astra drivers from sister outfits go down to the wire over the remainder of the season? With Navarro Dabova there on 278 points, but we will not unfortunately be seeing the young member of the Dabova family return to the circuit due to personal circumstances, but this does provide opportunity to Mark Sykes, Elwin Sykes and Davide Favo all to get into the top 5 and try to close down the two leaders should they drop any valuable points over the remainder of the season. We also do have the return tonight of Arjan Kregel in P8 there in the championship at the moment, 171 points. And we also do have the return of another driver who we haven't introduced. We'll introduce them in a brief while in qualifying. Now, as for the team standings going into tonight, the Mark Sykes Designs Constructors Championship here, it is the case that Verado Motorsport are leading the way still on 675 points, only 14 points clear of Racing Team Astra Blue. That's how close it is between the two teams. They've really only been separated by 20 or less points for the last 4 rounds, and it goes to show with this rivalry carrying on and racing what is the RP Motorsport Pro Am outfit not too far behind on 653 points there in P3, only 8 points off of Racing Team Astra Blue. In P4, Next Gen Racing with Sam Casey's UK on 627, and it's Next Gen Racing, their sister team, on 620 points, round off the top 5, with Racing Team Astra Orange, RD Simsport, McChange by DB1, CXR Project Black, and McChange by DB2 completing the top 10. Other notable mentions here, Excite Racing now on 407 points in 13th place, looking to try and get away from Team Racing Netherlands. They're only 6 points behind. And meanwhile, as we look outside the top 20, it is the case that Crest Autosport Ferrari have dropped outside of the top 20 due to a poor run of performances, and they'll be looking to try and arrest that decline with MRC Team, DRS Esport LMS2, TUC Bottom Split Heroes, and BRM completing the team standings. Well, as qualifying is about to get underway, we do briefly introduce the circuit for tonight. And, well, you guessed it, we're at the Silverstone circuit, the Grand Prix variant of which, and we are, of course, in the region of the Silverstone town in Northamptonshire of the United Kingdom, consisting of 18 corners, ranging all the way from Abbey Corner at turn 1 to Club Corner at turn number 18. And thanks to the circuit map provided us by simracingwiki.com, there's no doubt this circuit looks fast, it looks mean, and that is because it is based on an old airfield, based on a combination of 3 runways used during the Second World War in particular in the British country, indeed used by the Royal Air Force. And this circuit is all about speed through the corners. It is a high downforce circuit, and you can imagine we'll be seeing some of the highest average lap speeds seen in this series to date over the course of the laps at Silverstone tonight. And we'll get you an on-board or two in qualifying just to give you an idea of how quick a lap around here is, especially in the LMP2 class machinery. Now, as for our rules tonight, the rules haven't changed too much, to be fair. In terms of setup, our driver shall be running the iRacing Sprint setup, regardless of class, for tonight's races. In the sprint race, the driver shall receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 17 or more instant points, and the grid shall be separated into car classes, starting at approximately 5 seconds apart, so the LMP2s will start ahead of the GT3s. In the feature race, here's a slight difference. The grid shall be set as a reverse grid in driver class order based on the sprint race results. So that means it will be the case that we will have the LMP2 Pros at the front of the field with the LMP2 AMs behind them. Then there will be a separation as per the second rule there of what is that separation to car classes started approximately 5 seconds apart. So there'll be a 5-second gap between the LMP2s and then the GT3s. And the GT3 order will be as follows. It will be the GT3 Pro Apex Racing Academy lobby drivers ahead of the GT3 Pro IMB Raceware lobby drivers, and there will be the GT3 AM Apex Racing Academy drivers, followed up by the GT3 AM IMB Raceware drivers. Sounds a bit complex, but I think we've got through it, and on top of that, there should be one mandatory pit stop, which requires our drivers to take on fuel. Changing tyres is entirely optional in the feature, of course. Each driver shall have one fast repair available, and a driver shall receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 25 or more instant points. Well, that's enough rules and regulations. I know what you're all here for. You're here for the racing. Let's head back to the circuit. And as our drivers are now gearing up in this qualifying session, it's only appropriate that we do look to the front of the field right now as we see Paul Walton here making his way on around, I believe going on to a lap as he comes roaring on around. And you can see the circuit map there in the top right corner of your screen, absolutely ram-packed full of cars right now. And we do have some other things to consider. The most important thing is that in the GT3 class, as of last week, it is the case. Well, in fact, I think it was earlier this week, if I'm not mistaken, but we have recently had the change of the Mercedes AMG GT3 machine. You can see there, it looks a bit more menacing, it looks a bit more aerodynamic, and you would be right, because this is the 2020 Mercedes AMG GT3 Evo machine, which has recently arrived in the world of iRacing, and that does mean the old AMG machine dating back to 2016 has been left aside. It has been put in the garage, it's been locked up, so all of our Mercedes drivers have been given the right to switch to the new AMG Evo machine, and we'll be looking forward to seeing how it performs. And from what I'm hearing down the paddock, it is quite the beast on the straights. It's a much more enjoyable car in terms of aero stability compared to the previous one with those aerodynamic refinements. But how will it perform compared to its peers in the class? Well, we'll have to find out here at Silverstone. We're expecting great things from it, and we can see right now this is Dirt Bounce making his way all the way down towards turn number 6 as he makes his way down the Wellington straight here at full momentum. Now, on the left-hand side of your screen, you can see that we have tried to split the classes according to colours. We can see LMP AMs will be denoted by the pink colour. There will be LMP Pros by the blue colour, the light blue colour. GT3 Pro IMB will be a dark green, whereas their Apex Racing Academy counterparts will be in a lighter green. And in terms of the IMB Raceware AM drivers, they will be in a dark orange, whereas a light orange will denote the AMs within the Apex Racing Academy class. Appreciate it's a lot to take in, and we'll do our best to ease you into it as much as we can, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you're all doing well and set for some fantastic racing as this qualifying session is underway. And we do right now have making their way around the circuit the best part of what is, I believe, 35 plus drivers as they all look to try and set good laps. We do have a couple of guest drivers on the circuit as well, and as they make their way around, we do say hello in the respective chats too. In the YouTube chat, we say hello to Darth Vader and also Stuart Taylor there. Unfortunate to hear that you are still off with injury, unfortunately, Vader, but we do look forward to seeing you back in the near future. We also see that Stuart Taylor asking, how do you think it'll go with the two lobbies being mixed together? I think we will see a lot more racing action and close racing between the drivers. I do have a little bit of a concern how they will, particularly the GT3 class, navigate around one another in terms of battling. Our drivers have been told to battle within their class. If they want to battle against one another across classes, they are welcome to do so. There's no rule forbidding them, but I think it will be quite intense with regards to those battles, because it's the case that our lobbies over time, and due to people just having to take time away due to personal circumstances, the lobbies have got a little bit quiet, but now we're going to have an absolutely full circuit, and that means I think it's going to get a little bit frantic, and there may be some drivers who are just more comfortably compared to others today. And also we say hello there to Darren Doherty in the Facebook chat, and also to Lee Horn, who's out on circuit, and in the Twitch chat we say hello to Sir Bottlejob, who it looks like a massive grid tonight, absolutely loving it indeed. It is a huge grid here we have today, and I look forward to seeing how that rolling start in particular rolls off. But as our drivers continue to make their way around, the focus of our cameraman's attention right now is Matthew Hodges, the CXR Project Black driver in the Apex Racing Academy GT3 Pro class, as he rolls his way there through the long right-hander, and as he comes comes on out, making his way from turn number 7 through the Woodcock corner at turn number 8, and onto the old start-finish straight, if you will, if we were using the legacy variant of Silverstone, where the start-finish straight has been moved, of course, to the exit of Club Corner for the Grand Prix variant in Formula 1. And as we can see here, is the case that Matthew Hodges right now doing everything right so far. In fact, we've got a lot of lap time still to go, and indeed we are only a quarter of the way into this qualifying session as Hodges rolls his way on through. And we say hello to Phil McDougall, another CXR Project Black driver, albeit in the LMP2 class, the LMP2 Pro class, if my memory serves me correctly, and saying hoping to be back for the feature. My work hasn't helped me at all this season. I'm sorry to hear that, Phil, but we do hope to see you out on circuit, and I'm sure there'll be some space. I'm sure we can squeeze one more person out onto the circuit, especially if it's you, Phil. We do love to see you out on the circuit in the LMP2 class machinery. But speaking of LMP2s right now, well, we talked about the fact that he wants to try and seal up this championship, and when I did have the opportunity to speak to Chris Daines earlier on as he was getting into the car, it was the case. He was saying that not much to say other than 2 more wins that he thinks will seal the championship for him, and he's going to try and take those 2 wins tonight, but may have to wait for Suzuka for official confirmation. He's going to go all in and give it his best shot. Well, to be fair, if we know anything about Chris Daines, he really has been the driver who has dominated the LMP2 Pro class by a significant margin. It's not to be disrespectful or to disregard the efforts of Gaz Williams or Robert Sunik, the 2 drivers in particular, but Daines has just been infallible. When it's not gone right, he's still found a way to get himself onto the podium, if not get the win, and right now he is looking very fast. He is coming out of the box absolutely flying, and he's put a provisional pole lap in of what is a 1:46.952, the best part of 2.5 tenths faster than Gaz Williams, who's currently P2 overall and in the LMP2 Pro class, as they make the way on around, and we will very shortly be riding on board with Chris Daines to see what it's like to take the LMP2 Dallara P217 machine around the circuit. In fact, we ride on board now as he sets up turn number 17 and 18 to get the flat out run through Club Corner and go on to a lap. Takes down the corner here and charging down towards turn 1, up into Abbey he goes, looking for the 50 metre ball on the left hand side, a dab of the brakes there and hooks onto the curb, 5th gear, before now flat out through the left hand and heads up into the braking zone for turn number 3. Braking at 100 metre ball, coming all the way down the gearbox to 1st gear, letting the car roll wide before pulling it over to the right hand side, the village corner at turn number 4, and as he makes his way for a little bit wide of apex there, of course a bit of time, but now charging through at turn number 5 here, through Aintree and on to the Wellington straight, flat out here, going up the gearbox, up into 5th and looking for his brake mark on the right hand side. It'll come soon, about 100 metre board, in fact braking at 50 metre board, going as deep as he dares as he rolls his way through turn number 6 and keeps the car to the right for turn 7. He wants to try and take a little micro V shape here, an early V, and as he exits Lovefields, it is the case. A bit of snap oversteer there, but he's fighting the wheel. This shows you how quick he's pushing as he comes through Woodcock corner through turn number 8. That's the first half a lap done. Now we move into the higher speed section as he makes his way into turn number 9, braking for the 50 metre board there, letting the car roll on through, and now coming charging up towards what is the long section through Magazine to Beckett as he goes through turn number 10 into 11 here, rolling the car through, and now coming down the gearbox from 5th to 3rd, trail braking in, and as he rolls his way through Beckett's corner here, 2nd gear accelerating up the gearbox, 3rd gear to stabilise the car, and now charging all the way down the hanger straight. This is an absolutely scintillating lap as he makes his way into the final couple of corners, into the braking zone here for turn number 15, and as he does, braking at about 70 metres, trail braking it down to 2nd gear, fighting that steering wheel to get the nose to bite, using the runoff area there to the maximum limit, and now braking into turn number 16, coming down from the 100 metre board all the way down to 1st gear, staying wide of the sausage curves there. They only wiggle the car around through number 17 and into 18, flat out through Club Corner. It's an absolutely fast lap. But what's it going to be for Chris Daines? Is it going to be an improvement? It is an improvement. He raises that pole position time to 46.849, and what a fast lap indeed as he makes his way now down into a couple of corners, once again the open 3 corners. But as he makes his way on around, we do have to reintroduce the driver and a fan favourite, and that is the German driver of Jochen Siegert here, as you see him making his way around in the BMW M4 GT3. Now you're probably wondering, where has Jochen been all this time? Well, it's the case, he had to take an early break from the championship. I think it was after round number 3, unless I'm very much mistaken, and the reason for that is he comes out in another iteration of the brilliant next-gen racing Jägermeister machine, which we love to see. It is the case that with regards to the car, he has had to repair his wheelbase. That's why he had to take the break from the series, because his actual sim racing wheelbase had broken. It had been undergoing repair work for quite some considerable time, as he runs a bit wide there, coming out of what was Beckett's corner. But he's now looking forward to being back and having some fun in the races is his target, as he is a bit out of practice. He's not sure if he'll be able to keep up with the others who in his class, within the GT3 Apex Racing Academy class, but he's going to try his best, and he's really looking forward to the race tonight. And I can tell you, when I heard that Jochen Siegert had arrived down at the paddock at Silverstone, I absolutely jumped out my seat in joy, because we've been waiting for him to return, and now he's back. He's currently P4 in class, to be fair, and he's only a tenth off of Matt Evans, who's in P3. So it is the case right now, Jochen Siegert, if he wanted to answer that question, can he keep up with his peers, he's definitely doing a good job of keeping up with them so far, as he builds his way up onto another lap after that mistake. And as he rolls his way up through, we go from him to one of our major championship contenders in said class, and that is Matt Evans, who comes into the pit lane here. And well, Evans was saying to me in the build-up to tonight is that he's nervous going into tonight, as he had no practice and he's been spending time with family, which is completely understandable. Everyone's always encouraged to spend time with their family. Family is the most important thing. But it is the case, he's hoping his last experience of being in this situation, whereby championship lead and not being able to get practice in for a round, will, one of these situations like that last season, will help him see through tonight. He will use that experience to be able to settle himself down and get into the rhythm. Currently P3 in the class, only 4 tenths off a pole sitter, Nigel Stock, and we do see the Mercedes driver here make his way on a round. I do think it's the case that Nigel Stott will be taking a little bit of positives to the fact he's in a new car, therefore he's had to learn the upgraded version of Mercedes, but it's looking very fast so far. And goodness me, look at the distant camera shot there, folks. Doesn't it look like it has got the devil's eyes as he makes his way into turn at number 15, and as he rolls his way on through it, looking very good right now. Nigel Stott looking confident as he peels his way into the pit lane. But as he comes on in, we do go from one Nigel Stock to what is a driver further around the field, and that is Arjan Kregel. Now, where is Arjan Kregel? He's currently in the pit lane as well, in fact, the Team Racing Netherlands driver, and he was saying to me in the build-up to tonight that he's got to get a good result tonight because it's his wedding next Wednesday, meaning he'll not be at Suzuka next week, and well, we can completely understand that, and I think you all join me in wishing him the best of luck with his wedding preparations, and that he has an absolutely brilliant day, and it's a very special day, of course, when you do get married, and well, I think for Arjan Kregel, he'll be looking forward to it and hoping that he can carry the momentum of tonight into the wedding, assuming he gets some good results tonight. And good luck to him, indeed, good luck to all of our drivers. But as we cut from one man to be a husband to a driver right now who is looking to be in matrimony with the car, and that is Michael Price, as he makes his way on to another lap here, does the LMP 2 AM class driver as he heads on through. And well, Michael Price, really one of the big names in the LMP 2 AM class outside of the Walton Vessels battle. It is the case that Price, Holman, Baker, Williams, Scott and Collins, to be fair, all of them have been contesting that P3 spot for some time and really trying to pick up those major points off of one another, as we do see Paul Walton's gone a bit wide there, so he's going to have to give the space to Price, who's coming to the turn number 5 offline as he makes his way from entry down towards Luffield Corner. It is the case, looking good so far as he completes the Wellington Straight, and as he comes roaring on through, I should say, we do say hello to NXTGEN Ultra. That is Kevin Smith in the YouTube chat, and also to Arjan Kregel in the YouTube chat, who I believe right now is taking a breather and going on the old social media. And we see Phil McDougall there in the YouTube chat saying the new Mercedes is awesome, very snappy at the rear, but not a bad thing either. Indeed, we do like a little bit of kick or bite, as drivers, well, some of us do. Some of us prefer a car that's a little bit more stable. Having a little bit of kick on the rear end is nothing to laugh at. It can work out very nice, particularly when you've got a lot of torque steer. But meanwhile, Michael Price here making his way on around, and as he does, looking rather smooth. Now, in terms of the standings, you can see them on the left-hand side, we are showing the top 3 in qualifying for each of the classes, apart from the one we're currently spectating a driver of, where we'll show you the full top 8, and that's how it will appear in the races box. We don't have enough space on screen, we don't have enough collateral screen space, or real estate, we should say, to be able to show you everybody, unfortunately, so we'll keep that focus. But right now, it is the case that Chris Daines, the fastest of everybody here in the LMP2 Pro class, and overall, by the best part of 3.5 tenths over Gaz Williams. We then have Paul Walton, who is currently the provisional pole sitter in the LMP2 AM class. only on pole by 2.5 hundredths ahead of Stefan Vessels, and it is the case the two of them are P3, P4 overall. And then we can see in the GT3 Pro Apex Racing Academy class, it is Carmelo Mettello who we focus on now, and the DRS Esport LMS driver here looking very fast and really carrying on from where he left off at Spa-Francorchamps as he makes his way down and around. And right now I think he would have been thinking back on the Spa race, and in fact he did have a little bit of fortune go his way with regards to a safety car, which really hurt one of his major rivals who was making their debut in the series last time out at Spa-Francorchamps, and that was Vin Glenn, who we see the German driver here from Deutsche Payment Esports as he makes his way through the Magazine to Beckett section in the BMW M4 GT3. And one to watch this gentleman for the simple reason that Glenn, a very fast driver, and he picked up that momentum at Spa-Francorchamps very quickly, despite the fact he was new on the ground. And as he makes his way here down the Wellington Straight, well, we'll have to wait and see how he does tonight. But right now, he's only 1.5 tenths off of Martello, which is a sizable gap to be fair. But then again, we do know that the Audi R8 LMS is one of those cars very strong in qualifying, but can suffer in the race, particularly if we've got quite sizable curves, which we do have some rather nasty raised curves here at Silverstone. And also on top of that, if we've got a high track temperature, that can cause the tyre wear to really multiply, and then it'll be about stability, something the BMW M4 has compared to the Audi. But we'll wait and see how it plays out in practice. Meanwhile, in the GT3 IMB Raceway lobby class, it is the case that we do have one Lorenzo Gualtieri, who is currently the fastest, and indeed he is the fastest of our AM drivers overall. And as he makes his way here through what is turn number 4 and heading up towards 5 in short order, it is the case the Lamborghini Huracan driver here absolutely flying, and he is 3.5 tenths faster than his main rival in the championship and the championship leader in the GT3 AM IMB Raceway group, and that is Tristan Di Nobrega. And well, as he makes his way around, he's faster than Dirt Bounce right now, but we do have a slightly depleted what is a GT3 Pro IMB Raceway group, and that is Dirt Bounce right now, who is your pole sitter. But you do have to keep in mind, of course, that we have 5 drivers in that, and we have Bounce, Wedder, Skitter, Romano and Franken, and right now that class really struggling to get those lap times in compared to some of their peers here, and they're working hard on improving those laps. As we do see Dirt Bounce rolling his way on through, we cut over to what is Nigel Stock in the GT3 AM Apex Racing Academy group. And as he makes his way around right now, it is looking as though Nigel Stock here puts in a good lap, indeed a 59.949, and continuing to try and find more lap time out there as he rolls his way on through. And makes his way through turn number 4 and up into 5 here. Nigel Stock still half a second faster compared to his next closest rival, and that is Sean Cranley Swash. And to be fair, Sean Cranley Swash here actually maybe putting himself in a really good position in this qualifying session, for the simple reason if he out-qualifies Emmons and Seeger and Addy in particular, he could be on course for some good points here, and almost 2 tenths of a second advantage in that qualifying. That could mean that effectively he may not be able to take the fight to Stock unless he gets a better start compared to Stock. But P2 could be on the cards, and now getting much closer to the top 3 in the championship with only 4 rounds to go. As he makes his way down and around into turn number 1, and once again, in fact that's not turn number 1, my apologies, that's the old layout as he pulls to the circuit. Turn number 9 there, if we get it right. We do look from him to Carmelo Mettello, who's making his way for the last couple of corners, and we're right on board here with Carmelo Mettello over the shoulders. He comes to the end of his current lap and go on to another, and this will be his final flying lap, and let's take you on board a GT3 class lap around the Silverstone circuit. He's making his way into turn number 1 here, looking at that 50-meter board and trail braking in down to 5th gear, using the full whip of the circuit through turn number 2, right on the limit there, before braking down into turn number 3, rolling all the way down the gearbox to 2nd gear, settling the car in 2nd, pulling the car over to the right now and into the centre for the braking zone for turn number 4, and as he exits out from 1st gear now, accelerating up the gearbox, and a nice smooth opening sector here for Martello as he heads on to the Wellington Straight. Now getting ready to go into the next 2 corners, 2 very tricky corners in the Audi. Got a trail brake in and keep the car nice and settled. Looking at 100 metre board, then the 50 metre board, trail braking in down the gearbox from 6th to 3rd, and as he rolls his way, gets a nice amount of apex curve there before rolling into left field, and as he heads on around here through turn number 7, 2nd gear, a nice V shape there. You can see how he got himself nice and tucked back into the exit portion of the apex curve, and now making his way through Woodcock Corner, cutting as much as he can to the right-hander, and now heading onto the 2nd half of the lap. Into turn number 9 he goes. The LMP2 class traffic just goes past in there. Ideal timing. That was, I believe, what was Paul Williams going on through. And through at turn number 9, Martello goes. A nice run now into the high-speed section, which is Magazine to Beckett's here. Through turn number 10, takes a bit of sausage curve before rolling off it through turn 11. Now trail braking down through 12, down from 5th to 4th gear. Trail braking further into 3rd gear. And as he rolls his way out of Maggots, out of Beckett's, I should say, and coming on to what is the hanger straight now. It is the case accelerating up through the gearbox. It's been a relatively good lap so far for Martello. He's green in all sectors he's covered, and now heading to the last 2 subsectors. In fact, he's just gone personal best in subsector 4. He rolls his way through turn number 15. A bit of traffic there, but it won't get in the way too much. He had a little bit of snap oversteer there as he came off of the curve. It unsettled the car, and as he comes down into turn number 16, heavy on the brakes, right on the cover, and he loses the rear end now on an absolutely ferocious lap. And to give you an idea, that lap was 2 tenths up on his previous best, and Martello gets it wrong at the final order when the checkered flag comes out. And as we look here to Antonio Giovinazzi making his way on around, it is the case that right now the Audi driver on a lap of his own, currently P3 in the class, 2.5 tenths off of Vin Glenn, and really the best rest. It seems as though it's a shootout between Martello and Vin Glenn, but both of them are in the pits as that checkered flag waves. No other drivers are coming to the end of the lap time. We'll wait to see if there's any other big gainers here, but right now Giovinazzi really trying to gain compared to his peers, and I can tell you that he has not improved in the opening half of the lap. He's got 2 subsectors to go as he makes his way through at Maggots into Beckett's, and right now rolling his way on down in the number 99 Audi. But in this class, it is the case that every apex matters, and right now Vin Glenn and Martello have shown that. Giovinazzi, he is half a tenth faster than Gavin Gardner, who is in the pits. I think Giovinazzi will be safe in P3, but I don't think he'll be going any higher. As we see him come to the end of subsector 4, it's not an improvement there, so I think this may be a lap which is not a considerable improvement, if at all an improvement. But meanwhile, I can tell you that in the LMP2 AM class, it is fortune reversal. Stefan Vessels has taken that provisional pole position off of Paul Walton, and Paul Walton right now is in the pit lane, I believe, and so that means that Vessels will take that pole unless Paul Williams can pull something magical out. But I think it may be the case, given he is, in fact, Giovinazzi did improve in that final sector. My apologies, he's improved and taken P2 in the Apex Racing Academy GT3 Pro class. But right now we focus here on Paul Williams in P4 currently as he makes his way around. As he comes roaring down into the braking zone for turn number 16 into 17. Well, we'll have to wait and see how this plays on out. But it looks as though Williams here will be trying to consolidate the position rather than anything more as he comes out the last corner. And can Paul Williams improve? I don't think it was an improvement there from Paul Williams, and he will be starting P4 in the class. That will be P9 overall. We do have a couple other drivers out on circuit. We've got Peter Herschel here making his way around for Verano Motorsport, having made his debut at Spa, and I believe this is a cool-down lap given the amount of time we've gone into the extension of this qualifying session. Indeed, his lap time would have been sub 2 minutes. It's going to be over 2 minutes at this point, so this is just a cool down lap as he comes to the line. So that is not going to be an improvement unless I'm very much mistaken. No, it's not. And then we do have parts of the circuit, I believe, dirt bounce, and we've also got making their way on around right now. I think that's everyone that has jumped to the pits, and that is qualifying complete, ladies and gentlemen. Overall pole goes to Chris Daines, and let's take you through the grid for the purposes of race number 1. So line up on the overall pole position is Chris Daines from Verano Motorsport and taking the pole in the LMP2 Pro class. He is joined on the front row by Stefan Vessels from the LMP2 AM class, taking P2 in the racing team Astra Blue Machine. Gaz Williams and Paul Walton line up side by side on row number 2, with Adam Delmont and Jamie Dory line up on row number 3. Robert Asunik and Paul Scott on row 4, followed by Paul Williams and Sam Holman on row number 5. And then we have Michael Price and Dan Skinner on row number 6, followed by Mark Baker and Peter Herschel on what is row number 7. Jonathan Collins and Jim Stanton on row number 8, followed by Richard Stanton and Edward Lack on row number 9. And then we come to our GT3 class drivers, with Carmelo Otello taking overall GT3 class pole and the pole position in the GT3 Pro Apex Racing Academy class. And he lines up alongside Antonio Giovinazzi on row number 10. Vin Glenn, P21, joined by Lorenzo Gualtieri, our pole sitter in the IMB Raceware GT3 AM class, P22 there for the racing team Astra Orange driver, and they have behind them on row 12 Gavin Gardner and Tristan D. Nobrega. On row number 13, Matthew Hodges, followed up by Dirt Bounce, the pole sitter in the GT3 Pro IMB Raceware class for RP Motorsport Seniors, and behind them on row number 14, Maurizio Macconi and Nigel Stock in P28, who takes pole position in the GT3 AM class at Apex Racing Academy. Lambert Wedder and Lucas Arana there on row number 15, with James Slate and Lee Horn on row number 16. We then have Sean Scooter and Sean Cranny Swash on row number 17, followed by Matt Emmons and Elwyn Sykes on row number 18. And behind them, we've still got plenty more rows to go. On row number 19, Jochen Seeger on his return, alongside Stefan Albanese, P38, Gus Rankin and Matthew Addy on our 20th row there, Arjun Kregel and Davide Favo on row 21, Matt Caruana and Kevin Smith on row 22. And then last but not least, starting last with no time set, Mark Sykes starting P45. Well, that is the grid. We have got an absolutely stacked grid, but now as we look to the race here, it is the case that we pull off behind the safety car, and it will be for Chris Daines to get us underway for 15 minutes of racing action in the first race today. Of course, the sprint race here, as our GT3s will be starting a bit further back, and as we do look to the blimp camera here, you can see the huge stockade of drivers making their way on around right now. An absolutely ram-packed grid, and we have not got long as we see a bit further back here. Our GT3s finally getting themselves up to speed, but we cut to Chris Daines here as he's about to get us underway for 15 minutes of racing. Lights out, away we go here with Chris Daines setting the tone, but look immediately, Robert Asunik looking on the inside. There's they make the way in the rear of the picture, 3-4 wide as they come into turn number 1, but everyone who made their way through the opening corners safely, and as they come through the opening complex here, it can get very tight into turn number 3 as they all come battling down the brakes, and Robert Asunik, they're making it 3 wide, battling with the Exo Racing driver of, I believe, that's Adam Delman, battling with Jamie Dory as they roll the way on from here in the gin stands. Has had a bit of a moment, we've got multiple cars turned, and that's a couple of LMP 2s. They've got it wrong. Sam Holman in the mix there, pointing sideways as they coming out. Meanwhile, in the GT3 class, Antonio Giovinazzi leading at the moment ahead of Carmelo Metello as the GT3 seem to have cleared the opening couple of corners a bit more safely. We had a couple of run wide. When I say that, I think we've got a bit of an instant further back involving Gus Franken and Arjun Kregel. We've also got jumps to the pits for Kevin Smith, so we have had a couple of instants on the opening lap, it would seem. We've got an LMP running wide, that's Peter Herschel, I think he's run a bit wide, coming on to the Wellington straight, but right now as we see Davide Fava here trying to battle with Elwyn Sykes, up the inside he goes versus his teammate, and look at Seeger there, who's trying to get in the mix as well, as the returnee tries to go for the move. He's going to be on the outside line here as they head through turn number 7, and he's going to have to wait for the run through 8 and up towards 9. He's going to be looking for it here in the battle for what is overall P39 out of circuit. Side by side they go through Woodcock corner, and you can see on that inside line now as they come up into turn number 9, into the braking zone they go, and he gets the move done for the time being as we've got a car off there, and I believe that is Peter Herschel who has gone off again. I think there's heavy damage to that LMP2 machine, or cold tyres, one of the two, and it's not happy place. We've also got off there, that's Sean Cranley Swash. Goodness me, Verona Motorsport have had a mixed fortune start. 2 of their drivers in arrears, and well, the rest of their drivers are looking good. And speaking of looking good, we go from the back of the field to the front of the field, because after one lap, Chris Daines still leads ahead of Stefan Vessels, who leads in what is the LMP2 AM class here as they all separate on out. But where is Paul Walton, I hear you ask? Well, Paul Walton has dropped all the way down to P3. It is not a strong start for Paul Walton, and he's got to try and get himself back into the proceedings here. Paul Scott's had a much better start by comparison. We're not sure there was contact. It has been a lot to cover in the opening lap, but meanwhile we look from them to our GT3s, and we can see it's still Antonio Giovinazzi who leads our GT3s overall ahead of Glenn as they go on to lap number 2, and a bit further behind Gavin Gardner here chasing after what is Lorenzo Gualtieri, but he's got to worry about the fact he does have behind him one Tristan Nina Rega's going to go up the inside here, and Nina Rega looking for the movers off circuit. That's one of the Stanton machines, I believe, who's had a bit of an off track as they all roll the way on through, and we can see here it is the case that Matthew Hodges battling for position, overall position. Do keep in mind the fact he's trying to battle Gavin Gardner here, but he's got Tristan Nina Rega to worry about, and a lot of these drivers are having to get used to the fact they're now racing with other classes, and it's an absolutely ram-packed field, so it is the case that a lot of drivers will be settling into this as much as they will be looking to gain places, as we see Matthew Hodges here holding up Maurizio Macconi as they roll their way through turn 7 up into turn number 8, and Macconi looking strong as they roll their way through turn at number 7, because as they come on through now and on towards Woodcock at turn 8, it is the case that Matthew Hodges under pressure and not able to chase down Martello, who's in P3. Who is his main rival in the championship, as we see they're coming up the inside of the pair of them. That is what is Richard Stanton, who goes in very tight on the inside line. To be fair, he's got the downforce to be able to abuse that inside line in the LMP2 machine as they make the way up towards Maggots and Beckett, and as they do, Stanton coming on through, but Matthew Hodges there falling a little bit out of sorts with regards to car positioning and having to settle one down. But as they roll the way through, we take a look back at what happened on the open lap between Gus Franken and Arjun Kregel. this was only moments ago, and because Franken here, the Volkswagen camera in the Mercedes, and under braking here into turn number 3. I think that's Argent Creel, just gives him a little bit of a tap on the rear, and both drivers get it wrong there, and that's very unfortunate for the pair of them. And well, that explains why they're both quite a way down the order, and Argent Creel getting off to a bit of a difficult start there. I don't think Gus Franken will be too happy about that one. I think just a bit of cold brakes. Hodges has to defend, and we've returned to live pictures defending against Maurizio Marconi as they roll their way on through turns at 17 and 18. And Marconi really put pressure. He's going to look up the inside, but he's just not close up there. He backs out literally by a sliver as they make their way onto another lap here. And as they do, down to turn 1, Marconi trying to find the move. But as they roll on through, we do look to Jim Stanton, who's under pressure right now from Jonathan Collins. This is the battle for P6 in the LMP2 AM class, battling for P12. Collins going to go around the outside, locks up the brakes there as they go on through, but he'll have the inside line, or will he? Into turn 7, no, he doesn't. As a result, Stanton holds the position there by simply getting his rival to go a bit too deep into the corner. And well, it's the case. I think Stanton will be worrying about the fact he's got pressure building, but it's not going to explode onto the scenes right now. As meanwhile, in the battle for what is P3 in the LMP2 AM class, we can see here Paul Williams has actually got ahead of what I believe is Paul Scott there. Now there has been a change because Paul Walton has come all the way back up through the class order, and as they roll the way on through, Paul Williams right now running in P3. He has got that pressure, and well, these two are not strangers to one another. They've battled plenty of times. The Team Tetra Rouge driver, a very tactical driver, more of the feature race driver if we have to be open and transparent, but at the same time Paul Williams does buck that trend and puts in some stellar sprint performances in the past, but right now he's trying to hold off the very fast charging Paul Scott as they make their way down into the braking zone here into turn number 16, and Paul Scott biding his time. These two, it's almost that they're playing chess already, even though they've only got 10 more minutes to play this chess match. They take their time, they work one another out, and then look for that opportunity. As we see a little bit further up in the camera shot, it is the case Paul Walton going up the inside there of what is Ed Lack in the LMP2 Pro class, and Paul Walton flying here. He's chasing down Stefan Vessels, but Vessels with such a strong start and Paul Walton dropping down the order, it is the case that Vessels are really in control of the LMP2 AM class race at this time, and he is a long way up the road. Well, let's wait and see if Walton can do anything about that given the time remaining in this race. As they roll the way on through, it is the case Walton is clear of Lack and now making his way down after what is ahead of him there. That is Dan Skinner, who's the next driver up the road. Now, as they roll the way on through here, we do look for our LMP2 drivers to a bit further down the order, and in particular we head to Matt Evans, who right now having to deal with a little bit of a concertina effect and also trying to navigate his way in amongst different class traffic, if you will. And the NXTGEN Racing, Sam Case's UK driver here, currently P2 in the GT3 AM Apex Racing Academy class. And as they make their way into turn number 1, it is the case he's chasing down Nigel Stock. Where is Nigel Stock? Well, he's a bit further up the road. Nigel Stock is approximately 3 seconds in the rear of the picture. That's Stefan Albanese taking a bit of a rally cross line through turn number 2, and he comes back onto circuit and manages to thread the needles. I believe that's Maurizio Marconi who's had a spin. Well, that Audi is looking worse for wear, and as he waits to get back on circuit here, what's happened to Maurizio Marconi? Coming down to the braking zone here, you can see goes a bit wide. Oh, goodness me, and it's the case Albanese following him there, and as they made the way on through, oh goodness me, he lost the rear of the car, and then Evans had nowhere to go other than into his side panel. So I think Evans would argue to the stewards then Marconi had lost the car and he had nowhere he could suddenly snap the brakes on without fear of causing an instant. But Marconi there dropping down the order, and Evans picking up some damage. How serious is the damage to the two cars? We'll wait to see, as that there off circuit I believe is Richard Stanton, who's just had an off and is returning. And it does seem as though it is getting very difficult for some of our drivers here to keep the car on circuit. I think there might be a quotient about track temperature here today, and that is what's causing all the problems. But meanwhile, speaking of trying to cause problems here, we ride on board with Vin Glenn in the BMW M4 GT3 as he chases after Antonio Giovinazzi here, who tries to break the toe in the battle for the lead of the GT3 Pro Apex Race Academy class as they roll their way in to turn number 15. And as they do, the Deutsche Payment Esports driver, now that he's settled into the rhythm here, will see the BMW's race consistency match up against the one-lap pace of the Audi R8 LMS. But as they roll the way on through, of course, Giovinazzi no slouch, that Audi machine. You'll remember, casting your mind back to the 2-hour race at Daytona, how Giovinazzi for the best part of an hour was leading the GT3 Pro Apex Race Academy class, and it was a major four-way collision between Giovinazzi, between Caruana and two other drivers, which saw Giovinazzi's race come to an end. Right now, he'd love to take the win here, even though he's a guest driver. He's a very fast driver, and as he makes his way down to the braking zone here for turn number 3, Vin Glen getting very close. We see there Mark Baker running wide and taking to the runoff area and trying to avoid battling with the GT3s or getting in the way of this battle. But Vin Glen definitely seems to be really building up that pace. As we say hello to Emil Blaine in the YouTube chat there, and we hope to see you back with Next Gen Racing in the near future, Emil. We do miss you, but right now Vin Glen will not be wanting to miss this opportunity to take the lead of the class as he rolls his way into turns 6 and 7 here, but no way through so far. As we're hearing that Mark Baker has actually jumped to the pit, as we see Giovinazzi goes a little bit deep, and Vin Glen considers the opportunity here. Can he get close enough? Not quite, as they roll their way out of turn number 7 through a corner of turn number 8, and as they make the way through that Audi, holding on for the time being, but for how long you can see there in the rear of the picture, that's Carmelo Mettello, P3 on track. He is the class leader in the championship, and as he makes his way through turn number 9 right now, they will all be salivating at the prospect of being at that top step of the podium. But as they make their way on through, we look from them to a bit further down the road, and that is to Tristan Dina, in fact just only yards down the road, who currently P2 in the GT3 AM IMB Raceway class. He is chasing after his sister teammate and his championship rival Lorenzo Gualtieri, and behind them you do have Gavin Gardner and Matthew Hodges in the GT3 Pro Apex Racing Academy class, who would love to get past them and battle for the lead further up the road. As they make the way here underneath the Johnny Walker gantry, heading down the hangar straight, it is the case that Tristan Dina right now, I think, settling in and knowing he can afford to drop a couple of points versus Gualtieri, so long as he doesn't drop too many. That will be the big concern. If Gualtieri is able to get on parity and points, it will be the case, and the two will go down to the wire. And that's something you don't want when you're the championship leader. And as they make the way through turn number 16 and 17, it is the case right now. This 4 stack of GT3s all coming together in 2 battles respectively. Whereas they roll the one through, hold up a second. We're hearing that Stefan Vessels had a moment on circuit, and that's Vessels into the wall, and he's jumped to the pits. What has happened? Well, making his way here into turn number 9 as he came on through. He's hit the apex curve there, but nothing of it. Oh, goodness me! And there's a GT3 across the road, and that explains the story, and I believe that is Maurizio Macconi. With his return to circuit, he's spun, and Vessels there has literally just seen the GT3, and he's gone straight into it, and that will be absolutely frustrating for the South African driver, given the pace he was showing here and how the fortunes can turn with only 4.5 minutes of the race to go. And well, now that means that Paul Walton is into the lead of the LMP2 and plus, Paul Williams up to P2, and Michael Price, who fell down the order at the start, he's now up into P3 in the class. He's come a long way up through the LMP2 class, and well, he's absolutely flying right now, and I think he's salivating the prospect of trying to hunt down Paul Williams, who's 3.3 seconds ahead with the time remaining. But as they make the way through it, we look from Michael Price, very exciting racing to Jim Stanton here, who is chasing after Jonathan Collins. These two, they've literally been surgically attached to one another in terms of the gap since the start of this race, and they've been battling for P4 in the LMP2 AM class now, and well, no need to forgive them, they're absolutely loving it as they make the way down into turn number 3. It is the case right now, Stanton looking to be the more aggressive on the brakes. Collins there really having to be ginger on the brakes and not overexert the car. I think he's worried about a lock up of Stanton, finds he's got a face full of Collins as they make the way out 4 and into 5. It's the case Collins there parking it on apex, which he's got the right to do, to be fair. He's driving safely, he's not slamming his brakes on in an area where you wouldn't expect someone to be braking. If someone's going to be sliding out of a corner intentionally, you've got to be prepared for it. But Stanton goes for a lunge up the inside, and well, my goodness, Jim Stanton there. It was the case early on in the season, he showed us just how daring he could be, and he's daring again, and he hooks it up for P4. An absolutely brilliant move as they make the way now through turn number 8. I think Collins will be wondering, where on earth did that come from? Well, as they make the way down onto the second half of the lap, we look from them to what is a bit further down the order. We look to James Slates here, the RP Motorsport Prime driver, as the IMB Raceway GT3 AM driver, currently running P3 in class. He's really the best of the rest outside of Gualtieri and Dino Rega, and he has got an 18.5 second advantage over Elvin Sykes as he makes his way into what is turn number 1, and as he rolls through right now, you can see Lee Horn just behind as well. Lee Horn running P6 in the Apex Racing Academy GT3 Pro class, but as they make the way through at turn 3 and up into 4, looking at smooth for the drivers right now. In front of him, that is Nigel Stock here, who is in a bit of a world of his own right now with regards to the GT3 AM Apex Racing Academy class, in the fact that he has a 6.3 second advantage over his main championship rival of Matt Evans, and his other rival Matthew Addy is down in P4 and a long way off. So if Nigel Stock can keep this together, he is looking to be on course here to take the first of the 2 wins at Silverstone tonight within this class as he makes his way on around, and he would be overjoyed at that feeling. I have no doubt about that, given the momentum and the simply that Nigel Stock at Spa really was the favourite to take the win until he made that mistake by lifting off at Blanchimont when he didn't need to. It is the case now, the English driver really building up that momentum once again. I think he is a tour de force as he makes his way into turn number 9. But behind you see Stefan Vessels has made his way back out to the circuit. He has taken the repair and he is trying to get to the end of this race, and of course gets the end of the race on what is the lead lap ideally, or at least no more than one lap down, so that way he qualifies for the reverse grid. And you see coming through well, that is Chris Daines, as Chris Daines rolls his way on through. But we're hearing that Sam Holman's had a bit of a moment further down the road. Can't quite see Holman at the moment, he seems to have had something go wrong. And here is Sam Holman. He's had a bit of an off track, and we've put it back together, and now he's making his way down the Wellington Straight. As we look from here to what is our GT3 Pro class, in particular our Apex Racing Academy class, we can see Antonio Giovinazzi leading still with only a minute to go. He goes on to his final lap here, as we understand it, with Vin Glenn behind him, P2, and Vin Glenn in fact has dropped backwards a little bit, and Carmelo Mettello is now starting to put the pressure on as we ride on board the gearbox here of the BMW M4 driver. Martello really pushing hard as they come through 3 up into turn number 4, and as they roll on through, Martello taking a glimpse the inside here, no way through at this time. It's definitely looking as though Martello is one of the stronger of the two drivers at this point in the race. I wonder if Glenn's got a problem on the car, because one minute he's looking very fast in terms of pace, and now that pace has fallen away. On that last lap, Martello took 4.5 tenths out of him. Such was the gains he made as they roll their way on through, and as they make the way down through turn number 6 into 7. We have to look to one driver who on his return today has got a lot to do, and that is Matt Caruana here, the Roman Grosjean Academy GTWR driver, as he makes his way down the Wellington Straight here. He was our championship leader, he then was absent for a couple of rounds, but he's back in force tonight, and he'll be looking to try and get his championship campaign back alive. He's well within a shot of winning the championship come the end of the season, but right now running down in P8 in the Apex Racing Academy GT3 Pro class. This is not where he'll want to be, but speaking of where they'll want to be, I can tell you that right now our overall race leader Chris Daines has gone on to his final lap. He's gone on to his final lap for at least half the lap already, and he is now making his way through Magnussen to Beckett, so we'll cut to him in the near future as Matt Caruana here. I'm very happy to see he is returning tonight, but it is the case, he has got a lot to do, and this is not the way he was going to have started off his night at Silverstone. But as we cut from him, a previous championship leader, to our current championship leader in the LMP2 Pro class, well, he nailed the start after what was an absolutely brilliant qualifying session, and now only 3 corners to go, and with a 3.9 second advantage over Gaz Williams, you see in the rear of the picture there, it is the case. He carried on, and his target was trying to get 2 wins to pretty much seal the championship. This is going to be the first one, for as he comes out the final corner, he is your winner from Verano Motorsport. It is Chris Daines of Denmark who takes the win over at Silverstone, the sprint race, ahead of Gaz Williams here, P2, as he crosses the line, and then it will be Jamie Doria who rounds off the overall podium and the LMP2 Pro Class podium as he crosses the line. Paul Walton takes the win in the LMP2 AM Class through a race of very mixed fortunes, and it'll be Ed Lack P4 ahead of Dan Skinner P5 in the LMP2 Pro Class, and then Paul Williams takes P2 on the podium for the LMP2 AM Class ahead of Michael Price, who I think will be wondering how on earth did this all play out, and he won't mind the fact with the Excite Racing driver that he's just sealed a podium in the LMP2 AM Class. And then meanwhile it will be the case that as he rolls his way on through here, he's got still a bit of the lap to go. It's not all over yet, and it is Antonio Giovinazzi who's currently leading in the GT3 Pro Apex Racing Academy class. But I can tell you, whilst he's making his way around, Lorenzo Gualtieri has taken the checker flag in the GT3 IMB Racewear Lobby class, and he's taken the win ahead of Tristan Dino Brega as we see him here making his way on through. And then it will be James Slates who takes 3rd place in the GT3 AM class for the IMB Racewear group. And meanwhile in the GT3 Pro IMB Racewear group, it is Lambert Wedder ahead of Lucas Mono and Dirt Bounce. And in what is the Apex Racing Academy AM group, it is Nigel Stock who has taken the win ahead of Matt Evans, so you see them both there. And then it is Jochen Seeger who on his return has taken P3 and a podium in the sprint, and he'll be very happy with that. But we still got one class whose podium is yet to be decided, and that is in the GT3 Pro Apex Racing Academy class. You can see here the 1.1 second advantage. I think it's going to be a formality at this point, unless he gets it wrong in the last 3 corners. Behind Vinglen's trying to hold off Martello, but we focus here on the privative Antonio Giovinazzi for as he makes his way for the penultimate corner. It's looking good, and as he comes through the final corner, he comes through Club. It'll be Antonio Giovinazzi who takes the win in the GT3 Pro Apex Racing Academy class here in the sprint at Silverstone, ahead of Vinglen P2 and Carmelo Martello, who takes 3rd place in the end. And that, ladies and gentlemen, rounds off your result for what is the sprint race here at Silverstone in round number 9. And let's take you through those results in their full order, subject to any stewards' inquiries. So after 15 minutes of racing here in race 1 of the PROTO GT3 Championship at Silverstone, as sponsored by the Apex Racing Academy and the IMB Racewear, it is the case that Chris Daines took the overall win and the win in the LMP2 Pro class by 4.8 seconds ahead of Gaz Williams P2. Jamie Dory P3 rounding off the overall and the LMP2 Pro podium ahead of Paul Walton P4 overall, taking the win in the LMP2 AM class. Then Ed Lack and Dan Skinner P5 P6 ahead of Paul Williams P7 overall, that's P2 in the LMP2 AM class, followed up by the 3rd place driver in said class, Michael Price. There were a great result for Michael Price, back on form. Adam Tillman P9 overall ahead of Jim Stanton P10. Paul Scott P11, Jonathan Collins P12, Sam Allen P13, Robert DeSunnett P14, Antonio Giovinazzi P15 overall, taking the win in the GT3 Pro Apex Racing Academy class, with Vinglen and Carmelo Martello completing that GT3 Pro podium. Indeed, they are your overall GT3 podium. And then Richard Stanton P18 ahead as we continue down the results. It is the case that P19, Lorenzo Gualtieri taking the GT3 AM winning in the IMB Racewear group ahead of Gavin Gardner and Matthew Hodges. Tristan Dino Brega taking 2nd place in the IMB Racewear GT3 AM Group, P23 overall. And then Lambert Wedder, P24 overall, your winner in the GT3 Pro IMB Racewear Group, ahead of Lucas Romano and Dirtbouts completing the IMB Racewear GT3 Pro podium. And then we have Nigel Stock, P27 overall, your winner in the Apex Racing Academy GT3 AM class, ahead of James Slate, P28, and he rounded off what was the podium for the IMB Racewear GT3 AM class. And then we have in P29 Lee Horn ahead of Stefan Albanese, Matt Emmons, P31, 2nd place in the Apex Racing Academy GT3 AM class. And then we do have Jochen Seeger on the podium of said class there on a return to the series, P32, Matthew Addy P33, Sean Cranny Swash P34, Sean Scooter P35, Elwin Sykes P36, Gus Franken P37, Arjun Kregel P38, and then continuing down the order, we've got a lot of drivers to get through here. 45 drivers, ladies and gentlemen, taken to the circuit. Fantastic to see the numbers. Arjun Kregel P38, as we said, David A. Farber P39, Matt Carolina P40, Mark Baker P41, Mark Sykes P42, Maurizio Merconi P43, Peter Herschel P44, and Kevin Smith, I believe, last but not least, with that retirement early on the race, P45. Well, my goodness, an absolutely huge grid to get through, and indeed plenty of racing action. And now our drivers will be taking a breather before getting ready to go racing again for race number 2. The sprint race will be back in approximately 13 minutes time. We should be back by 9 o'clock for what is the build-up to the feature race, and it'll be 60 minutes of racing action, and we'll have to wait and see how it all plays out here at Silverstone with that mandatory pit stop. Don't go anywhere, we'll be back soon, and you won't want to miss it. We are back, ladies and gentlemen, and we're back for the build-up to race number 2 tonight, and that is the feature race, which is due to kick off in just over 4 minutes' time here in round number 9 of the PROTO GT3 Championship, as brought to you by NXTGEN Racing on iRacing at Silverstone, sponsored by the Apex Racing Academy, who we heard a few more words from there, remembering that Apex Racing Academy is not just a setup shop, but it's dedicated to making you better at iRacing with services, access to drivers, and features not found on other driving schools and academies. But also this series sponsored by LMP Racewear, the #1 place to go for racewear that's designed for you by you. Fully customizable racewear, unlike your typical off-the-shelf racewear products. Well, it was the case. What did we see in the sprint race? The first time that we've had our two lobbies combined together. Well, I think we can definitely say we saw a lot of racing action up and down the field. A lot of drivers coming together in terms of those close battles and battling between classes as well, whether it was in the LMP2 class, as we see Gaz Williams here making his way through, or Gareth Williams as he's known in full, alternatively in the GT3 class. And well, one example of that was Tristan Di Nobrega, who found himself quite early on battling with a number of the GT3 Pro drivers in the Apex Racing Academy lobby as he was trying to hunt down Lorenzo Gualtieri. As he makes his way around here, we have not got long, we've only got 3 minutes on the timer, and it is the case of our drivers right now in the final warm-up session in the build-up to the feature race. And was the feature race in town? It's 60 minutes of an all-important mandatory pit stop. Our drivers' fuel tanks have intentionally been restricted so that they cannot do the entire hour on a single tank of fuel. They must come in to take on fuel. Whether they change tyres or not, it's up to them. We've typically seen drivers stay on a single set of tyres. They do not change tyres in the pits, but will today be the day where we see some drivers take on tyres, given that this Silverstone circuit can be very punishing to the outside tyres through the extended high downforce corners, such as we see here, turn 15 as Di Nobrega goes on through. Well, we'll only find out in due order, and indeed anything can happen, and it probably will at Silverstone, as motorsport in history has shown us time and time again. But whilst we have been waiting to get underway, we can see that plenty of you enjoying it in the YouTube, Facebook and Twitch chats. We did see a brief message from Richard Stanton in the YouTube chat to say it was a fun race, the sprint race, but I do think that may be the case as well. Richard was hoping for a bit of a better race. It didn't quite go the way he wanted it to go, but we'll see him bounce back, I'm sure, over the course of the feature race. We also saw there's the bottle job in the Twitch chat saying, what's better than 15 minutes of racing? A full hour's worth. And indeed, a full hour's worth. You get your money's worth here when you're tuning on in, and it is the case. We've got plenty more racing action to come, and I'm keeping my eyes on this man, Lambert Weather, our winner in what was the GT3 Pro IMB Racewear group in race number 1. And can he make it back-to-back wins, given the fact he'll be starting from the back of his class effectively in this second race, with the reverse grid as separated by both car class and also broken up into driver class. And we have those 6 classes, of course. It is going to be very intense, and we'll wait to see how they all align on that grid in very short order. And as we are waiting right now, absolutely itching to go racing. Also a huge moment for Antonio Giovinazzi taking his maiden win in the rounds where he's coming in as a guest and holding off Carmelo Martello and also being Glenn. Can he find a way to come through the order and make it 2 out of 2, which would be sensational? Or will it be the case that the one driver who seems to be on his debut last time out, and indeed today it was the case that the sprint denied the opportunity of a win, and can he finally make it a win on the 3rd time of trying? Vin Glenn for Deutsche Payment Esports. We'll wait to see him. That BMW M40 rolls on through. One of the most composed drivers. It seemed to just start to fall away from him in the last 2 to 3 minutes of the sprint, but will the longer duration favour him, or will it go against him? Well, if there's anything to go by in terms of the Spa-Francorchamps 2-hour endurance race, it should go his way, given the pace he shows. And it was the case that that safety car at Spa really took away what was looking to be a gold-plated win. In the end, it turned out not to be the case, but we'll see whether it works out today. And meanwhile, one other question we do have to ask, and he's currently making his way around the circuit, Chris Daines. Can he make it 2 out of 2 wins here today and essentially put the championship in all but wrapped up fashion? He is, of course, the leader in the LMP2 Pro Championship, and will he be able to make that second win, which he desires? He's coveting the idea of back-to-back wins here, and that has really been his story. It was the case that he picked up perfect scores for the opening 4 rounds back-to-back, something that's never been done in next-gen racing history in any series on iRacing or other platforms. And can he now seal the championship effectively with 3 rounds to spare? Well, he will find out. Indeed, we all will find out now as we get ready to form the grid for race number 2. So as the grid is being formed, let's take you through that grid order here with our 45 drivers. It is Gaz Williams who lines up on pole for this race, and alongside him, I do believe that might actually be a little bit of an error. We are going to refresh that screen. Give us a brief moment, ladies and gentlemen. It is Mark Baker who lines up on pole. There's the correction, and alongside him will be Stefan Vessels after that difficult end to his race with that contact with the wayward GT3 in the middle of the road. Richard Stanton and Robert Assoon line up on row 2 with Sam Holman and Jonathan Collins on row number 3. Paul Scott and Jim Stanton on row 4 with Adam Delman and Michael Price on row number 5, and then Paul Williams and Dan Skinner on row number 6. Behind them on row 7, Edward Lack and Paul Walton, followed by Jamie Durant and Gaz Williams on row number 8, then Chris Daines and Peter Herschel on row number 9, and Phil McDougall makes up P19 there. Then starting off our GT3s, it will be Stefan Albanese who lines up on pole there ahead of Lee Horn and Matthew Hodges on row number 11, Gavin Gardner and Carmelo Martello on row number 12, followed by on row 13 Vin Glenn and Antonio Giovinazzi, followed by Gus Franken and Sean Scooter line up on row number 14, row 15 Dirt Bounce and Lucas Romano, followed by Lambert Wedder and Sean Cranny Swash on row number 16, Matthew Addy and Jochen Seeger on row number 17. Keep your eyes out for Jochen Seeger after that brilliant performance in race 1, Matt Emmons and Nigel Stock on row number 18, followed by Davide Favo and Adrian Crow on row 19, Elwin Sykes and James Slates on row 20, Tristan Dina Brega and Lorenzo Gualtieri on row number 21. Now 43 drivers taken to the grid. Maurizio Macconi line up P43. Last but not least here, as we now get ready to go racing, and as the camera pans round, it is Mark Baker who will take us underway for Team Tetrud shortly for the LMP2 class drivers, as he now builds up the speed and goes through the last 2 corners. It's lights out, away we go here for race number 2 at Silverstone in round 9 of the Proto GT3 Championship. And Stefan Vessels immediately goes on the offensive, but Robert Assoon looking at the inside as well. But Stefan Vessels makes the jump nice and early on, as we all got multiple cars off the circuit. Oh, goodness me, that's one car pointing the wrong way, but otherwise everybody else has survived, albeit I think we've actually got 2 LMPs off, and I'm not 100% sure. I think Jamie Dory was one of them, and a bit further back that is, well, we'll have to wait for a correction on that one as to who that is going slow. I think Jim Stanton was also involved in that contact as they all roll the way on through. Meanwhile, the GT3s wins here. Stefan Albanese holds the lead coming for the first 2 corners, followed by a number of drivers, including Matthew Hodges in P5. We have Hodges here trying to hold of Antonio Giovinazzi early on. As further back, we do have a bit of a moment for Sean Scooter, who spun coming through turn number 3. And as they exit out and head up towards 4-5 in quick succession, that was turn number 4, and now through 5. Here's Sean Scooter just having a bad run of luck. As meanwhile, Giovinazzi here trying to go up the, oh, goodness me! And the LMP2 there just coming out very, very suddenly. And that was Jim Stanton who's gone for a spin. Well, it's the case that Giovinazzi, he's been able to get the car back on the road, and in doing so, they're showing his rallycross talent, no doubt about that. He's been able to get ahead of Matthew Hodges in the oddest of fashion, and well, he's battling right now. I think he will have to give the place back, given the way he's gained the place. He's battling for it here. I think he feels as though actually he's earned the right to it. Matthew Hodges is tucking in behind, but that is not the typical way we expect people to pass one over here at Silverstone. But you know what? We'll let it fly, given the fact that that was an in-knuckle mark, and I think there's more credit to Giovinazzi for holding the steering wheel there rather than letting the car go completely. As meanwhile, a little bit further back, you can see Matthew Addy there has had a really good start in the Apex Racing Academy GT3 and Plus, up into the lead, and right now as he rolls his way through, looking good so far. He's coming running P26. They make the way down what is the Hunger Straight, and as they come charging down, he just needs to settle into a rhythm nice and early as they head down into the braking zone for turn number 15. But as they come on through, you can see it there, giving the space. That is, I believe, that's Dirt Bounce, who's just yielding the width of the road as they make the one through. And we're seeing a bit further back there, we do have one of our LMP2s coming through rather rapidly, and once they make the one through, we'll wait to see who that is. But Matthew Addy definitely right now just pressing on as they roll their way on out of the corner. As they make the way through turn 18, we've got a car spun there, and that is that. I believe that's Maurizio Macconi who's at That's Carmelo Martello who's got it wrong there, and well, a number of drivers getting it wrong. Cold tyres as they make the way on to another lap. But we look from what is the mid pack to Adam Delmont here, who's battling with Mark Baker as they roll on through, and just behind that is, I believe that's Sam Holman who's trying to go around the outside, and Delmont there really a difficult situation. Mark Baker even more so as Sam Holman comes on through, and as he does, Jonathan Collins trying to follow through with him as Mark Baker loses 2 places at the price of 1 as they come out of turn 17 to turn number 8. They come charging through into 9 now, and as they do, it is one of those cases where Collins under pressure now as Mark Baker tries to come back at him in the long run, but Mark Baker not close enough. We run on board here with Mark Baker, the Team Tetrud driver, who's lost a lot of ground, I think through no fault of his own, just being in the wrong place at the wrong time. as they head in to Beckett's corner at this point. They came to back off here, but he will of course get the double draft of the LMPs in front of him, but he's a bit too far back I think to capitalise. He presses on and heads down towards what is turn at number 15. Under Johnny Walker Gantry goes and into the heavy braking zone here, coming down the gearbox all the way down to third gear. He runs a bit wide there in the dirt here, plus also I think he's got to get tyre temperature. We see a number of the LMP2s running wide. It is the case right now, tyre temperatures are already out of premium, they're not in their optimal window, and therefore a lot of drive struggling. Mark Baker goes a bit deep there into turn number 16, but brings it back together. It shows you how on edge these cars are until they've got their temperature in. We're only of course 4 minutes into this race. Oh goodness me, and I had to take a slow down now. I think that's Jonathan Collins who's had to back off as, oh goodness me, into the wall there in the rear, and he's just returned to this race. Phil McDougall and the CXR Project Black driver, it's gone horribly wrong for what has happened to Phil McDougall. Just only moments ago, and as he was making his way through club corner, the car just snapped and the rear came loose, and well, he's been able to get it off the road to not take anyone with him. But Phil McDougall there, just a car that did not want to turn, and when it did, it overturned, and the CXR Project Black driver with some damage to the car. We now return to the live pictures here, and Phil McDougall has got it all to do, as meanwhile we look to Vin Glenn here. Well, it was the case that he started towards what was at the back of his class, and now he's chasing after the leader of his class. He's really come through the order quickly, Vin Glenn. He's avoided all the carnage and contact early on, and well, the Deutsche Payment Esports driver here battling for the lead versus Stefan Albanese as they roll their way through turn number 3 and up towards 4-5 they go. In fact, that was turn number 4. I keep getting the numbers wrong there, but it is the case that Vin Glenn now charging after the leader of the class, Stefan Albanese, but they've got some time and distance to roll, and we'll wait and see whether he's able to close down on Albanese. Not right now, he is still trying to stay close as they make their way through turns 6 and 7. And you see Albanese, they're taking a bit of a wider entry line, trying to go for that later apex, trying to get the car hooked up very nicely as they go over the bump in the road coming through at Luffield. And as they make their way into the cut at this point, it is the case that Glenn charging on. As they roll the way on out at this point, it is one of the situations whereby the battle for the lead rages on here. Meanwhile, the battle for the lead elsewhere has come down as Stefan Vessels into the pit lane. Well, Vessels is not having the day he wants at all. He's come on in. What I'm wondering if this is, it won't be to take his scheduled stop, surely. I think there must be something wrong with the car. Alternatively, is that drive-through penalty? No, he is pulling into his pit box here. Well, I think he is, unless I'm mistaken. He's pulling on in, so there's something wrong with the car, and it will need to be repaired. And we can't quite see what's happening. It's a very quick stop and then go. Well, I don't know what's happened to Vessels here, but the Racing Team Astra Blue driver is not having a happy day at the office, and he's come back out in P8, and just in front of him, that is Paul Walton and Michael Price battling for P6, and Paul Walton has just got the P6 position here, and Vessels will be looking at that and thinking, what does it take for me to battle Walton? We see there Michael Price coming back, Walton going deep, coming out turn number 4, up into 5 they go, Walton on the outside, Price on the inside. It'll be a drag race here, but Price will not have the tow compared to his rival, and as they make their way down to the braking zone here, you see Price holding that inside, trying to defend versus Vessels. They come on through. Instead, Vessels going outside to inside here as he makes his way into turn number 7, and the Racing Team Astra Blue driver getting the move done in classic fashion. Outside to inside, but the rear comes loose a little bit. He has to try and settle the car down there as Price had to back off through fear of tapping the rear of Vessels' car, and well, the two of them did not want to be in the wars there as they make their way on towards turn number 9. But as they do, I can tell you that Jonathan Collins, meanwhile, has just made the move versus Paul Williams for P3 in the class, the LMP2 and class that is. How did it happen? So it was in the run here down towards turn at number 9. As they did, you can see Collins, boy, it was a bit of a disconnect there. I can see, well, we thought he might have been a pass out the circuit, but running wide there, that was Dan Skinner. So as we return to live pictures, no change in class as they make the way down towards turn at number 15. And as they come roaring on down, it is the case we look from them to our GT3 and class in the IMB Raceway category. And we can see it's Davide Fava who leads at the moment ahead of Arjan Craig. Oh, and Arjan Craig will lose the rear. James Slade's lose the rear as well. They all come together and stack into the corner. Goodness me. And well, if that was synchronised oversteer, I don't know what is, because it's the case that Tristan Nina Brega also loses it there. They're all getting it wrong. Goodness me. And let's just take a look back at what happened to Nina Brega in particular. They're making their way through. You'll see there is Arjan Creel, there's James Slate, just need a rate of stamps on the brakes and avoids the contact of both drivers. But then you can see the Audi going wide, a bit of contact, you can see it there, and that's what led to the spin. And the Racing Team Astra Blue driver from South Africa there, I mean, you're thinking, right, I've dodged a bullet, I've dodged 2 bullets, and then he goes to dodge the third. Well, he never expected it to come, and well, he's got a lot to do now. After all the momentum he was gaining, he's now got it all to do again. But meanwhile, as they all make their way on around, we do look from Tristan Liederbrenger to what is Stefan Albanese, the leader of the GT3 Pro Apex Race Academy class. And as we ride on board the gearbox here, we've lost Vin Glenn. Well, okay, when I say we've lost him, it's a case he's dropped down to P4. I'm not sure what's happened to Vin Glenn. In fact, we are very shortly going to get a replay of what happened to Vin Glenn. But before we do, we stay here with Albanese, because right now he's got Antonio Giovinazzi bearing down on him. And as the two roar their way through turn number 2 and up into 3, Giovinazzi up the inside. And it's a case, it's all said and done, or is it? As Albanese will now try and come back at him. You can see Giovinazzi covers off the centre of the road very nicely there as they make their way through turn number 4. And it is the case right now. The DRS Esports LMS2 driver is losing ground to the privateer as they make their way out of 5 and heading down towards turn number 6. And Gavin Gardner charging on through as they make their way down towards the turn 6 corner here. And as they go all the way down to the braking zone, no attempt back by Albanese. Gavin Gardner, the one having to watch here and wait for the opportunity. But we take a look back at what happened to Vin Glenn only moments ago. Well, this is battling for position with the number 45 car, and that's battling with Stefan Albanese. Went a bit deep into the corner as they come through. Vin Glenn just losing it there. The car oversteering. I think he just expected a bit too much of the rear of the car under braking into turn number 7. If he got that move done, it would have been a classic style move. But Vin Glenn there getting away with a mistake in terms of not picking up any damage. Just a little bit of wounded pace in the car, and he's dropped down to P4. But he'll close up. He's only 7 seconds off of the battle for the lead with Gavin Gardner at the rear of that battle. And it's the case Albanese and Giovinazzi further up the road. But meanwhile, we look from them to the battle for the lead in the LMP2 Pro class here, and it's the case that Chris Daines has just found his way past Robert Asunik as they make their way out to turn 7 through 8. We say hello to Deborah Grant in the Facebook chat, who's wishing everybody good luck for this race, and indeed wish them all good luck. As you see here, Chris Daines into that lead. Now, how did he get the move done? Well, let's take a look back. Only moments ago, and it was the run down the Wellington straight here. Robert Asunik holding that inside line. He was never going to give this up without a fight. And Chris Daines going round the outside there. Robert Asunik pins that inside line. It was the case that Chris Daines could use the confidence in the aero, in the tyre temperature, and got it done on the exit of 7. They just parked the car on the apex very nicely, blunted Robert Asunik's cutback momentum, and that's how Chris Daines took the lead of the LMP2 Pro class. And now he's trying to run away with it. He's already gained a second since we cut away from them. He is trying to put this to bed. He wants those wins back to back. If he can get 2 wins out of 2 tonight, it will be the case. He essentially is in control of his own destiny. It would be an absolute overturn of results if he was to lose the LMP2 Pro Championship, and he knows that very well, as we spoke to him in the build-up to tonight. But meanwhile, we look a bit further down the order and talking about trying to build up momentum. We see Paul Walton battling here with Jonathan Collins. Walton has found his way past through turn number 15, and right now the reason he's pushing so hard is he does not want the P5 driver in the class of the LMP2 and Stefan Wessels anywhere near him. Wessels, of course, Walton's main rival in the championship. Walton the leader, Wessels pursuing as they make the way into turn number 1. Once again, it is the case on another lap. 11 minutes has passed. Wessels right now having to really dig in deep here to find a way to hunt down. As we see off circuit, there's a bit of a lock up on the brakes. I believe that may be Ed. No, it's not Ed Lack who's battling here with Michael. No, it's not Michael Bryce. My apologies. That's with Dan Skinner. But we have had someone go straight off circuit there at turn number 3. We're not 100% sure who it is, but somebody locked up very heavily. But we come back to that battle between Wessels and Collins. He has found his way past Jonathan Collins, and let's just see that in its full splendour. We did start watching it here. We can see Wessels there taking the momentum and down up the inside here, and that was the lock-up. In fact, with the smoke didn't quite appear out of Collins' car, but Collins in the end just locked up the brakes, and Wessels came on through up the inside into turn 3 and through 4, and Stefan Wessels is staying in the wheel tracks of Paul Walton as they roll through it, and that in front of him is Matt Evans there. And well, speaking of the GT3 AM driver, how it has been a race of mixed fortune so far in a wounded Audi R8 here. He rolls his way through Magnussen into Beckett. It is the case he's losing a bit of time. He has been involved in an incident quite recently. What's happened to Matt Evans, I hear you ask? Well, we're about to find out. This is only moments to go as they're making their way into turn number 1, and as they did Evans lose it through the corner? He did slightly, and then Sean Scooter came right on through by the looks of things. That's the way it would appear, unless I'm very much mistaken. I may be mistaken. I mean, in this case, Evans was losing the car, and some of these taps on the rear there, and it has not worked out for Evans at all, and he's been turned, and well, Evans will not be pleased with that. I think there might be a word to the stewards after this race. Of course, there's only pace race stewarding. We don't have live stewarding in these races, but right now, Matt Evans is not having a good day at Silverstone. That to be said in this feature race, as he now gets himself back up to speed. Meanwhile, we look from Matt Evans here to another GT3 driver in the GT3 Pro Apex Racing Academy class, and that is Gavin Gardner here, who's closed up to the back of Stefan Albanese, who has fallen away from Giovinazzi. You can see off in the distance. We're going on board here with Gavin Gardner, who takes a little bit of a peek to the inside, trying to get into the mind of his rival. And as they roll their way through turn number 9, it is the case Gardner not close enough to go for the move. Instead, he has to wait and watch as they run through. Mark Baker has jumped to the pits from what we're hearing, and Lamont Wedder's had a moment out on the circuit. But right now, we focus on this battle for P2 in the Apex Racing Academy GT3 Pro class as they roll their way through Beckett and now head down the back straight towards what is turn at number 15. As they build up the speed here, we'll see that the Ferrari gradually close up in the slipstream. The Ferrari really does build up a lot of speed when it's in the tow, and as they make their way into that braking zone for turn 15, Gavin Gardner right now looking for that opportunity to try and get ahead of the Audi. Where can he go for it? He's not close enough, I think, to go for it in the run down towards 16, but he'll try and settle the move down into turn number 3. If he can get a good run through 16 through to 18, he gets a nice entry into 16. In fact, you can see there how Albanese actually a bit out of sorts coming into 16 under braking. The car just pinch into the apex as they roll the way through 18. Here's case Gardner a lot closer. As they go on to another lap here, Gardner will be in that position to look for the move into turn number 3 if he keeps this close. As they roll through 1 into 2. Now he is heavy braking zone. Will he go for it? No, he's not quite close enough. He has to restrain, as we do see Albanese goes a bit deep, but he will cover off that inside line as they roll the way into turn number 4. Gardner looks at the cutback here, and this could be the opportunity he's asked for. He gets a little bit of wheel spin. The traction control just kicks in and blunts the momentum. He's going to have to tuck back in once again as they make their way down the Wellington straight. And will he look to the inside here? Albanese puts the car in the middle of the road to cover it off. He's suspecting a lunge, and therefore he doesn't go for it. Gardner, he waits. He's trying to get Albanese to outbrake himself, and Albanese right on the limit here in terms of braking as they roll the way through 60 into turn number 7, and you can see how Gardner just able to take those more considerate and smoother lines by comparison to Albanese as they make their way around and onto the second half of the lap. But right now does not look as though the move is coming as Chris Daines here comes on through to put them a lap down, our overall race leader, as they make their way into turn number 9. And Albanese in fact goes a little bit deep there, letting Daines on through on the inside, and this is what Gardner needs as Daines has set it up for his teammate. And as they make their way through Magazine to Beckett, you can see it's going to be the case that Gardner there side by side with Albanese. They come through turn number 10 into 11 into 12, and Gardner has to back out there. You can't go too wide all the way through. They just haven't got the downforce for it. And as they make their way through what is turns 13 and 14 now onto the hanger straight, Gardner will have to look for another way to get on through. But as they make the way down towards 15, we look from them to what is our leader in the GT3 Apex Racing Academy class. And going from one Toronto Motorsport driver to another, that is Sean Cranley Swash here, who is in a comfortable lead of what is 3.3 seconds over Matthew Addy as they make the way down the hanger straight. You can see there Paul Walton cutting his way through as an LMP2. You can also see Stefan Vessels a little bit further back, and Jonathan Collins trying to follow on through with Vessels as they make the way through turn number 15. As they roll the way on through, we do look from Sean Cranley Swash to what is Lucas Romano, and Lucas Romano, who we didn't really talk about too much in the sprint race. It is the case, the RP Motorsport Prime driver here leading in the IMB Raceway GT3 Pro class as they make the way into turn number 1. He has an advantage of 9 seconds over Dirt Bounce, and to be fair, the driver from RP Motorsport himself, Dirt Bounce, it will be the case. I think they'll be very happy with P1, P2, and Gus Franken will be trying to pick that P3 up for them as they make the way on through. And speaking of Gus Franken, we can see the Dutchman a little bit further down the road here, and the RP Motorsport senior driver in the new Mercedes looking smooth right now. It does look as though it is a top 3 so far, albeit with a lot of time to go. We're not going to put the commentator's curse on yet, a lot of time to go, but the RP Motorsport looking to hold that top 3 in the IMB Raceway GT3 Pro class at this time. As they make the way down the Wellington straight here, I think Gus Franken set it into him. He's 4 seconds off the Dirt Bounce, but he is the best part of it, 1 minute and 20 seconds ahead of Lamont Wedder, with Wedder having had to have come to the pit due to damage picked up on the car. And as he rolls his way on through, it is the case now that Gus Franken settling into that room. Indeed, a lot of our drivers now settling down, as meanwhile we can see, speaking of someone who's not settling down, that is Lorenzo Gutierrez. Hold up a second, what's happened to Matthew Addy? There's a load of smoke being kicked up there, and I'm hearing it's come from Matthew Addy's Lamborghini Huracan GT3 Evo. What happened to the GT3 AM driver? this is only moments ago. Coming down to turn number 6, does he lose the rear? That rear that was called around so many times in Lamborghini, he does. The rear just comes on loose, and you can see he was understeering initially, and he's rolled the car out of the way of everybody, knowing that a lot of drivers were coming on through, but the car seemed to understeer into turn 6, and as he tried to turn it in towards turn 7, the car just simply went, no, we're going from full understeer to full oversteer, and that Lamborghini just not hooking up for Matthew Addy the way he wants to. When he gets it hooked up, he's very fast, but it seems as though for every time he gets it hooked up, the car comes back to bite him. And right now the Briton will not want that to continue happening for the simple reason, if it does, he's losing out on critical points in the championship campaign. As he makes his way down towards turn number 15, we can see just in front that's Carmelo Martello trying to make the move here on Tristan Di Nobrega. They're racing in different classes. Martello, one of our GT3 Pro Apex Racing Academy drivers. Di Nobrega being one of our IMB Raceway GT3 AM drivers. So right now they're battling for track position and overall position, but they're not battling for points. Instead, they are simply battling to be ahead of one another as they roll the way around. And with 18.5 minutes to complete, we've still got plenty of the race to go here, and anything can happen over the hour, as we said previously. And Martello right now will know all about that, given the way his race started very well, but he lost out quite considerably. And as he looks, that little cheeky move to the inside versus Di Nobrega trying to get into his head, they roll the way through, and we are hearing that we may have had a retirement for Vin Glenn, or a disconnection, I think, for Vin Glenn. The Deutsche Payment esports driver is listed as retired on our screens. That's very unfortunate, as he was looking quite good on pace. I think something may have gone wrong for Vin Glenn, we're not 100% sure. But meanwhile, we do look from what is the battle between Martello and Di Nobrega to a bit further on the road. We see some more brain smoke being kicked up there, and we look all the way up to what is Stefan Albanese here, who right now has got Gavin Gardner still bearing down on him as we ride on board the gearbox here of the Audi driver from DRS Esports LMS2. You can see how he's able to use the direction changes as a strength in that Audi to pull ahead of Gavin Gardner through Maggots into Beckett's, but as soon as they make the way down into what is turn number 15, it is a situation whereby the Italian driver just not able to keep the distance. As they roll around through the DRS Esports LMS2 driver right now, looking smooth and keeping it together as best he can as he comes into the braking zone for turn number 16. Rolling the car through, now into 17. And as he comes out the corner, it is the case that Albanese under that pressure. Now Gardner, of course, has been trying to size his move up for some time. We were looking at it earlier when Gardner was a bit closer. He's almost as close as he was previously. But the thing is, Albanese might be a driver he can catch, but he does have quite a bit of defensive nuance behind him. Italian right now will not be wanting to let this go, and I think Gardner's got to try and surprise him as we're hitting Martello into the pits along with Gus Rankin. We've actually got a couple of drivers coming on in, and as Albanese covers off the inside cutback through turn number 4, this battle continues and rages on to the Wellington Straight. As they make the way around in terms of those pit stops, we do expect our earliest undercuts, particularly in the GT3 class, to occur around the 20-minute mark. So it's not uncommon to hear that a couple of drivers have come on in and decide to gamble. I can tell you one thing, whilst they're gambling, one driver who is absolutely flying, here he is, Tristan Di Nobrega. He's just at the fastest lap in the IMB Raceway GT3 AM class, and as he rolls his way through turn number 4 and up into 5, Racing Team Asher Blue driver trying to hunt down James Slates, who's just in front of the gap between the two and 1.1 seconds. As they make the way all the way down into the straight, and well, Tristan Di Nobrega just needs to bide his time. He's got a lot of time on his side. He doesn't need to rush this. He just needs to gain those places gradually. Lorenzo Gualtieri is leading in the class at the moment. He's only 4 seconds up the road. As we see there, James Slates gets it a bit wrong. Di Nobrega has to take evasive action, but that's exactly what we're referring to in terms of taking his time, because sometimes drivers may drop it, or he needs to be ready to seize on the opportunity when they make that smallest mistake. And he's now up into P2. Albeit the gap to Gualtieri has opened up to 5.6 seconds because of the fact he had to slow down coming through turn number 6. But at the same time, the Racing Team Asher Blue driver will now see this as motivation to go hunting. Because meanwhile, James Slates here has recovered the car. I think the RB Motorsport brand driver there will have his heart in his mouth a little bit for the simple reason he probably was not expecting the car to come loose. But meanwhile, speaking of loose, it is the case that we look to Paul Scott here, who is trying to hunt down Paul Walton, although I believe Paul Walton may have recently made the move past Paul Scott for P2 in the LMP 2 AM class. We're just trying to see if we can get confirmation of what's happened. Indeed, we have, and here we can see how the pass was made. So making their way down what was the hangar straight at the time, it's going to be Paul Scott on the inside, Paul Walton on the outside, and into the braking zone they went for turn number 15, and Walton trying to hang it all the way around Paul Scott keeps that inside line, defends it, but now finds himself on the outside. And Walton using the error, but it was the case that Scott went for the switchback under braking, and well, he was not able to get it. And in the end, Paul Scott had to take to the apex curb, and Walton held the position and has held on to P2 in the LMP2 AM class. So he's gained a place, and Paul Scott now in pursuit. You can see here as we come back to the live pictures now, it is the case that Paul Scott's still making that chase as they roll their way down the round through turns 10 through to 14. And as they do, well, Paul Scott, we know he does not give up without a fight here, but in the dirty air of Paul Walton's car, it is the case the gap is 7/10 of a second. Now he'll start to close it. I don't think he's got enough straightway to be able to close it up as much as he would like to consider the move into 15. For as they make the way around, you can see that gap is opening up gradually, and therefore I think Paul Scott at this point, we're thinking more about the strategy now and settling for that P3 for the time being, thinking about how he can use strategy to get ahead of Walton. As meanwhile, ahead of the pair of them, here is Sam Holman, who after a very difficult race number one, the Holoton racing driver here, flying and leading in the LMP2 AM class. He does have Paul Walton gaining, however, and Walton is gaining approximately a rate of 3 to 5 attempts a lap as they make their way onto another lap here. They go onto what for them is lap number 14, and Sam Holman at this time, as you see a bit of smoke being kicked up there. A lot of brake lockups today, particularly in the LMP2 classes, but also some GT3s getting it wrong. But right now, Sam Holman, I think you'll be hoping that with Peter Herschel and Dan Skinner behind him and between him and what is Paul Walton, they'll be given a bit of a buffer zone in order to try and run away. But we'll wait to see if that is the case, as we can see Sam Holman here really having to work his way through the GT3 traffic, going around there. What is, I believe, the number 30 car, that's Nigel Stock. And as he goes way up past Nigel Stock's rank P4 in the GT3 AM Apex Race Academy class, in this case of Sam Holman just pushing on. And as he makes his way around, we do cut from him to what is a bit further down the order, and in particular we head to Matthew Hodges here, who in the GT3 Pro Apex Racing Academy driver has our leader in the IMP Raceway equivalent, the GT3 Pros, of Lucas Romano right behind him. And as they roll the way through right now, I think Hodges will be hoping that Lucas Romano just stays there behind him and decides not to try and go for the move, given the fact that Hodges wants to chase down Gavin Gardner, who is 6.5 seconds up the road. As we hear into the pits, it's Matthew Addy from at the time what was P2 in the GT3 AM Apex Racing Academy class, and now we will see how these pit stops playing out. As that is promoted, you can see it up into P2, and Sean Cranny-Swash, the leader of the class, is 16.2 seconds up the road and seems to be in a very comfortable lead space at this time, as a lot of pit stops are coming in, and in particular we now have pit stop season for our LMP2 AM drivers. We see Sam Holman into the pits. We also see there in the rear of the pitch, that's Peter Herschel. I think we've also got Dan Skinner there, and then we have Paul Walton, our LMP2 AM second place driver. Paul Scott just behind, and also Stefan Vessels. They're all coming on in here, and well, by the looks of things, this could mean that it's going to be a fuel-saving one stop here for the LMP2s today. We'll wait to see as they all peel into the pits, and Vessels will be the last in, and we would expect would be the last out, but we'll wait to see how it goes out on these pit stops. For all of them right now will be absolutely egging their pit crews on, hoping they service the car a bit faster. As we see Jonathan Collins coming on in, and as Collins makes his way into the pit, it is the case. It's full pit stop season, and well, we will wait and find out who comes out at the head of all of them. As meanwhile, we cut from our drivers in the pit to our drivers who are out on the circuit, and that is Chris Daines in particular as he rolls away in front. In fact, we're hearing that as our drivers are coming out, we'll wait to see how that field splits. In fact, well, cameras are going to be jumping back because we do have our drivers coming out, and Sam Holman has come out ahead of Peter Herschel, who is right behind him, and look how much time Paul Walton has gained in the pit stops. It's the case that Paul Walton has gained enough to jump Dan Skinner, interestingly enough, and I think there might have been some fuel saving involved in there for the RD Sim Sport driver, but Walton has gained a track position by simply having the shorter pit stop, and Dan Skinner loses out, and Paul Scott has lost out massively in the pit stops here, in the fact that he's just not gained, and in fact he's fallen a bit further back. And Stefan Vessels as well has had quite a long stop, but I think there might also be some fast repair work in there as they all make their way back up to speed. As they roll the way on through now, it will be the case about getting those tyres back up to temperature and then going on the offensive. Of more pit stops are occurring. As I look outside my commentator box window, we've also got Lorenzo Gualtieri, Chris Daines, and you can see it into the pit. Stefan Albanese has just left the pit lane, and we've also got, I believe, Davide Favo coming into the pits and Gaz Williams. So it is pit stop season right now, and we're just shy of the halfway mark of the hour as our drivers continue to build up in this. It's a very intense race in the feature at Silverstone. But meanwhile, in terms of our leaders in the classes, I can tell you with everything that is playing out so far, it is the case that Gavin Gardner now finds himself the leader in the GT3 Pro Apex Racing Academy class here. And, well, he'll be very happy with that, and he'll be looking to go longer compared to his rival in Albanese. As he makes his way around, I believe Antonio Giovinazzi also has already come into the pits and taken his pit stop, unless I'm very much mistaken. Indeed he has. I can confirm my timing board. And now it is the case that Gardner needs to respond to this for the simple reason that he needs to put in an absolutely phenomenal in lap to try and jump Albanese and then go pursuing after what is Giovinazzi. And here he comes into the pits. Here comes Gavin Gardner, and now the story will be told in the fact where Stefan Albanese. He's making his way out of turn number 9 right now and heading into the Maggots and Beckett's complex. As we finish off taking a quick sip of water there, it's all going to be on the board. Albanese, I'm sure, will be given the hurry up by his pit crew now, and indeed by his pit chief, to say you need to push, because we do have Gavin Gardner in the pits. And where is Giovinazzi? Well, here is what we believe is your race leader when the strategy is all complete in the GT3 Pro Apex Racing Academy class, as he rolls his way here through turn 16, 17 and 18. Here he comes on through. Gardner's still being serviced in the pit lane. And as Giovinazzi comes to the end of a lap and goes on to what for him is lap number 15, Gavin Gardner leaves his pit box. He's making his way on out. Where's Stefan Albanese? Well, here is Albanese, the DRS Esport LMS2 driver. I think it's going to go the way of Gardner here. There's a long run still for Albanese, and Gardner coming out of the pits and coming up onto the track surface. Indeed, he's got it. Gavin Gardner has jumped up to P2. He's leapfrogged over Albanese, and so has Matthew Hodges. Both of them have got ahead of Albanese, and now it is the case that Albanese's got to go on the offensive and try and get 2 places back, as he's lost 2 places through the pit stop strategy. This has not worked out at all for the DRS Esport LMS2 driver as he makes his way on around, and we can see Carmelo Martello, who is trying to get back into the proceedings. He's now up to P5 with the fact that Carmelo Martello still, I believe, he's already taken his pit stop, so I think it's the case he's racing to the end. No more pit stops for Martello unless I'm very much mistaken. And as our GT3 Pro drivers make their way around, we cut from them to our GT3 AM drives, and in particular we look to Arjan Kregel, who is currently leading in the GT3 AM IMB Raceway class. He does have Renzo Gualtieri, who is behind him, having already pitted, whereas Kregel has not. Kregel, of course, involved in that spin at this corner earlier, coming to turn number 6. Had that little moment. James Slate's also got caught up in the moment. A number of drivers did indeed. And right now the Dutchman, I think he'll know that he's going to be passed by Gualtieri, if not on circuit, then through the pit stops. And he's just focusing on delivering those laps right now. He gets a little bit of oversteer there, coming out to turn number 7 into Woodcock corner. Turn number 8 he goes, and with the halfway point of this race now reached in terms of time, he'll be thinking about who he'll be battling with for the remaining half, as we see. But releases Gualtieri to the inside there, not really putting up a defence. It wouldn't be in his interest to do so. It would not be worth his race time to try and defend the lead, which he's going to lose when he comes into the pits. But right now we see a little bit further back, we do have Tristan Dino Brega here, P3 in the IMB Raceway GT3 AM class, and trying to hunt down Gualtieri. The gap between the two of them now 3.5 seconds or so as they roll their way down and around and on to the hangar straight. Now as they come through, in the meantime, I can tell you it is the case whereby we do have a change in the lead for the LMP2 AM class. Paul Walton has got ahead of Sam Holman. We haven't seen that on camera, but we are going to try and give you a view back of how that pass was made, and here we go. Just with a couple of laps going back, Sam Holman locking up there towards the rear of what I believe was Peter Herschel's LMP2 Pro class machine, and Walton just going up the inside into turn 3 and saying thank you very much as they rolled out 3 and into 4 and got the move done through 4, and Walton there capitalising on the opportunity. As they make their way on down in towards turn number 16, it is the case that Walton chasing now Peter Herschel, and he's right on the back of the Verano Motorsport driver. He's going to have to be careful here. It is the case the LMP2 Pro driver in front may be going a bit slower, but Walton does have to respect the fact that he's still got valid right to the circuit. They're all on the lead lap. So right now Peter Herschel, I think, just a bit unsettled in the car, and Walton trying to break away from Holman is still not too far behind. The gap between the two of them only 7/10 of a second as they roll the way on up in towards turn number 3. As they make the way out of 3 and into 4, it is the case that we look down to Paul Williams in P6 in the class, P14 overall, and the Team Tetra Rouge driver chasing after Jonathan Collins right now. And it is the case, I don't think it's gone the way for either of them in terms of the race they've wanted so far. And well, we can see Paul Williams here to dive to the inside of what is 2 of our GT3 AM drivers. That's what is Elvin Sykes and also Arjan Kregel. as they make the way through, and Paul Williams staying out of trouble. And we can see Jonathan Collins getting into trouble there, almost going off circuit for turn number 4, and having to go the long way round Lambert Weather there. So this is going to give Paul Williams a bit more momentum in the run to 6, but he's not close enough to go for a move, surely. He's going to look up the inside, and Collins gives him all the space in the world to attempt to go to the inside. But to be fair, I think it's the case that Jonathan Collins invited Paul Williams into so much space. I don't think Paul Williams knew what to do with the space given to him, and in the end actually hesitated, because Collins is holding on. But as we ride on board the gearbox here of our P5 driver in the LMP2 and class, he's under a lot of pressure from Paul Williams as they come into turn number 9. It is the case the Team Tetra Rouge driver here staying firmly with his wheel tracks as they make the way in to the Maggots complex. And as they go, they're going to come past some GT3 traffic, which will narrow the lines they can use. But to be fair, this is a one wide run as they make the way in towards Beckett's. And as they roll out, you can see Collins there just washing out a little bit with some understeering the car. And as he's like, what do you mean by washing out there? He just simply deviates off the apex line he wants. And you can see he goes defensive now as he does a little bit of a weave. And as he does, it's the case that Paul Williams looks up the inside. It's turn number 15. And Williams on that inside. Jonathan Collins tries to shut the door, but Williams makes a claim to the inside to outside run. But Collins covers him off. And as they make their way down to 60, Paul Williams looks to try and outbrake his rival. Jonathan Collins goes a bit deep. Oh, goodness me. And Paul Williams loses the rear of the car and takes Jonathan Collins with him there. And will both drivers now get themselves back up to speed. But I think it will be the case they'll settle back into the order they were in. But they both lost a lot of time through that. And that was very nip and tuck. In the end, Paul Williams just carrying a bit too much momentum in. And the rear coming loose and tapping the rear of Collins' car. And that is all they wrote with regards to that battle for the time being as they make the way into turn number 1. And off circuit there, I believe that is Phil McDougall, unless I'm mistaken. And well, that is an absolute disaster for what is the LMP2 Pro driver. In fact, he's missing the front end of what is that LMP2 Pro machine. And I think it's the case that right now Phil McDougall not having a happy day in this feature race. Let's take a look at what happened. Making his way down the start-finish straight here. It was a side-by-side battle. Oh, goodness me, that was contact there with, I believe, I'm trying to figure out, that was one of the iRacing machines, but who precisely? And then Davide Favo was just a victim of circumstance there. And well, I think Phil McDougall and the iRacing driver both getting a little bit too close together. And in the end, they both tried to think they, well, you see James Slade's getting it wrong in the rear of the picture there as well. Turn 1 claiming a lot of drivers. I think Phil McDougall, and I'm not absolutely sure whether that was Dan Skinner or not. I don't think it was Dan Skinner. It could have been. He is one of the 2 drivers in the car. But there was the case that Phil McDougall and his fellow conspirator, both of the drivers there involved in that incident, well, it just did not work out for the pair of them. As meanwhile, it is the case that Dan Skinner rolling on here in P7 in the LMP2 Pro class as he makes his way into the braking zone here, having to deal with a lot of GT3 traffic right now, really siphon his way on through, and he's actually buying McConey some space to try and go around the outside of Matthew Addy. Brixie and McConey will get that done as Addy relinquishes the position there on track, and they have swapped places for P28 overall. McConey running in P6 in his class, the GT3 Pro Apex Race Academy class, and Matthew Addy running second in his class, which is the GT3 AM Apex Race Academy class, as they roll their way up into turn number 3 once more. Addy just staying there close behind McConey and trying to gain that lap time. And to be fair, he'll want to, for the simple reason that right now Jochen Seeger is chasing after Nigel Stock, and Nigel Stock under a lot of pressure here from the German driver as they roll their way through turn number 4 and up into 5. And the privateer here on his return, to be fair, is doing a very good job. It has to be said with regards to on his return to the racing scene. It may be the case he hasn't had much practice and he may be a little bit out of sorts, but he's definitely taking the fight. And right now as he rolls away, he's out the inside of Nigel Stock, and Nigel Stock has not got a response there. And you can see it takes the P3, and well, I think Nigel Stock might be looking to come back a little bit later on, but you can see it definitely making moves here, and I think he is making us all raise an eyebrow as to how he's returning as Nigel Stock watches on here in the Mercedes AMG 2022 machine. And as they come up towards turn number 9, will he have a response? That's the question as we ride on board with Nigel Stock. As we see Jochen Seeger losing the rear of the car a little bit there, and this will be all the momentum that Nigel Stock needs as they make the way through. Jochen Seeger covers off the inside, but it'll be the outside in to the Maggots complex, and as they roll on through, Nigel Stock gets the place back. And these two exchanging places in a quick succession as they roll on through and down towards where's the hangar straight they're going. Nigel Stock returns to P3, but he is still 5.5 seconds off of Matthew Addy ahead in P2 as they make the way on towards turn number 6, turn number 15. But as they do, we look now to where's our leader in the LMP2 AM, well not our leader in the LMP2 AM class, our third place man in the LMP2 AM class, and that is Paul Scott here, who is chasing after Sam Holman and is trying to break away from Stefan Vessels. And these three separated by only 2.5 seconds. They all pass through the camera shot there. And right now, Paul Scott, I think, having to really try and put together some solid lap to bring Sam Holman into this fight, because he will not want Vessels closing up before he can take the fight to Holman. But I don't know if he will have a choice around that. As we're hearing that Gus Franken into the pits. Gus Franken taking a scheduled stop now. And as they all make their way on down, most of the pit stops are complete. All of our drivers registering at least one pit stop on the board. And I think it's the case, the only driver who's not is Vin Glenn, but he has retired from this race, unfortunately. And as the drivers make their way around, Paul Scott here having to just keep his head down and focus on what lies ahead and try and break away from the vessels behind. But as he does, it is the case. You can see Sam Holman there looking very composed at the head of the trio, and he is continuing to chase after Paul Walton. And to be fair, after being passed by Paul Walton, Holman is not giving up the fight here. Walton has opened that gap up to a degree, but in return, Sam Holman really staying with him, keeping Paul Walton and also Scott and Vessels honest. And we did talk about in the early stage of the season that Sam Holman, who was leading the championship in the early stages for his consistency, the Holliton racing driver, is not to be laughed at with regards to his pace. He may not be the fastest driver in the LMP2 AM class, but he's definitely one of the most consistent, and that is being displayed here again today at Silverstone. For as he rolls his way through turn number 15, he is staying with the leader as they come down to heavy braking zone for 16, 17 and 18. As he rolls his way on through, we look from him to the LMP2 Pro class, and in particular we look to our overall race leader and the LMP2 Pro class leader of Chris Daines, who goes a bit deep there into turn number 6, brings it back together for 7, but Chris Daines right now 10.5 seconds clear of the rest of the field. He is of course pushing, I think, to try and put this to bed in case he needs to take an emergency stop and give himself as much ground up the field. But right now Chris Daines looking to be absolutely unstoppable as he rolls his way through turn number 9 and just looks to navigate his way past Elvin Sykes there in the McLaren MP412C as he heads towards Maggots Corner in short order. As he rolls through and into Beckett's, we look from him to Ed Black here, and we can see here lap the 6R Project Black driver chasing it down Peter Herschel as we ride on board with the 6R Project Black driver. As he rolls his way through turn number 6 and into 7, Black looking very composed at this time, although he goes for the deeper line through turn number 7, and this is to give them momentum in the run up towards turn 9 as they come through the corner. And you can see that Lucas Simon in the GT3 peels off to the inside here, staying out of the way of the LMP2 drives as they make their way to turn 9. Now Black won't have the move here, but he'll be thinking about getting as close as he possibly can in the run through at Maggots into Beckett, so that way coming down the hanger straight he can go for the slipstream assisted pass. He makes his way into turns 10 through to 14. Then you can see, look how close he's getting on the brake. He's almost been touching distance. He goes a bit deep into Beckett, but he won't have gone too deep and still lost the toe here, and he will now start to build that momentum. Gap 2.5 seconds as they come onto the straight. How much will it close up here? Black looking to the inside, he's thinking about it. Will it be a last ditch move? He looks up the inside, and he's given the space there by Herschel, and Herschel does yield, but you can see they've got a face full. Always Matthew Hodges, and as they make their way through, it's 3 wide with the GT3 being on the inside line, and Herschel covers it off on the inside as they make their way into 16. He clips a bit too much on the sausage curve, it unsettles the car, and Ed Lack takes the move and gets it done through 17 into 18. He's up to P5. Oh, goes with Herschel, gets it wrong there. The Serrano Motorsport driver, the rear gets unsettled, and he goes for a spin, but he's back pointing in the right direction already, and he's now got Jamie Dory coming on through as we see a flash of lights there from Lucas Romano, I think, to try and say to the Verano Motorsport driver, just get yourself back up to speed, I'm not going to do anything silly, as they roll the way on through and down into turn number 3. But that was very unfortunate for Herschel, who's looking very good in that defensive position, but just got it slightly wrong. And indeed, as you say there, Katie Eames in the Facebook chat, great driving from Ed Lack then, indeed a very good pass as they make their way on around. As they roll the way through, and now with less than 19 minutes to go, we look from Peter Herschel to a driver in the GT3 class, and it is Antonio Giovinazzi who we look to here, the Pro Apex Racing Academy privateer driver, as he makes his way into turn number 9 and looking very good at the moment. He is 14 seconds clear of Gavin Gardner and pressing on, and well, can anybody catch him? That is the big question. I don't think so at this time. I think this second winner, he'd make it 2 out of 2 effectively. I think it's all in his hands. He just needs to keep it together, but we will wait and see as the time bears down, because if we're known for anything here in Next Gen Racing, it is the commentator's curse, and that's why the cameraman is going to very quickly jump the camera away for our GT3 Pro Apex Racing Academy leader to what is a P5 man in the Apex Racing Academy GT3 AM class of Matt Edmonds here, who right now having a bit of a difficult day and is 14 seconds down on Jochen and trying to close his way back up to the top 4. He's got ample gap between himself and anybody else in the class. In fact, he's the last of the runners, I should clarify, in the GT3 AM class for Apex Racing Academy at this time. It's not gone his way at all, and you can see it by comparison trying to get into the fight with Nigel Stock after Nigel Stock repassed him. But as they make the way down towards turn number 9, the German driver here just not close enough to look for a move. But in terms of where you can think about that potential move, you may be thinking about it if he can get close enough down what is the hanger straight. Alternatively, on the Wellington straight, we do know the BMW is able to match the Mercedes in terms of straight line speed, but the Mercedes does seem to be the better kind of traction zones, albeit it does have a lot of understeer native to the body, and we're seeing there Nigel Stock demonstrating that understeer by going deep through Beckett, and now down the hanger straight they go, but you can see the Mercedes just able to keep that BMW at arm's length for long enough so that Seagate cannot go for the move, and as they roll their way through turn number 15, it's the case they stay as they were. Now heading on through, we do look a bit further up the order and we look to our LMP2 classes. In fact, that was Nigel Stock coming into the pits and Nigel Stock coming in for another stop. So I wonder if we've got additional stops coming up for other drivers. But meanwhile, we do look here to Paul Scott, who is chasing after Sam Holman and Stefan Vessel's behind. This is the freeway battle for what is P. Well, in fact, we've got a four-way battle building here, I think. No, it's a three-way battle, my apologies. But it is the case that we've got a three-way battle for P2 in the LMP2 AM class, and Sam Holman at the front of this pack as we look to the blimp camera here, and you can see Holman in this lead position, and then Paul Scott being chased by Stefan Vessels as they make their way down the hanger straight, and Vessels staying in the slipstream here, but not close enough to go for the move as they roll the way through, and their battling is only enabling Paul Walton to gradually open up that lead. It's 4 seconds now, as we can see Stefan Vessels has got Ed Lack closing up behind, and I think he's going to let Lack go up the inside here into turn number 16 on the basis that by giving the LMP2 Pro driver the position, he'll go hunting after the other two LMP2 AM drivers and give that momentum. But as we now come back to trackside camera, it is the case of Sam Holman now under a bit of pressure from Paul Scott, who closed up very quickly through turn 16 and 17, but has lost out through turn 18. And as they make the way down into turn 3, Sam Holman, I think, doing enough to stay in P2 for the time being. Now as they roll on through and we take a very quick sip of water, it'll be for the Hodgson Racing driver to nail this exit. In fact, he gets a bit of oversteer there, going out turn number 4, and how this affects his run down towards turn 5. The answer in short to that question is it doesn't affect him too much, and in fact now Paul Scott under a lot of pressure from Ed Lack, and Stefan Vessel's trying to close up as they roll the way on through. It's a bit of a difficult situation for Ed Lack because of the fact he is having to battle his way past drivers who are on a similar pace to him, interestingly enough, in the LMP2 class. And as they make the way towards turn number 9, I think he's got to bide his time and be a little bit patient here and just expect it will come as time goes on. But definitely an awkward one to navigate and an unfamiliar situation for our drivers, given the fact they're used to having 3 classes on circuit, not 6, and therefore they're having to figure out who's who and who to pass. But as they make the way around right now, Paul Scott, I think, feeling a little bit vulnerable this time, as Lack is very close as they make the way out of Beckett's and onto the hanger straight, and it is the case as they come roaring on down right now. Well, Lack will be looking to do everything he can, but he's not close enough, instead just tucks in behind. As they roll their way through turn number 15, we do look from the battle for P2 in the LMP2 AM class to our leader in the GT3 Pro IMB Raceway class, and that is Lucas Romano here, who really right now is in a world of his own, with Dirt Bounce 28 seconds behind, Lambert Wedder a further 45 seconds back from Dirt Bounce, and Lucas Romano has got really the section of the circuit to himself, and it shows in terms of the performance he's been putting in as he makes his way on around and heads down towards what is turn number 15. He's just not put a foot wrong, and right now this is looking to be a championship that is more and more tilting in his favour and really into his arms as he rolls his way through turn 15. But as we look from Lucas Romano, we look back up the order, and in particular we do look to the battle for P2 in the LMP2 AM class. We see Sam Holman is still holding that position, but he has got to go his way around a bit of GT3 traffic. That's Lambert Wedder, our P3 driver in the IMB Raceway GT3 Pro class. But the important thing is that Lack has found his way past Paul Scott, and now Stefan Vessel's looking for the move for P3 on Paul Scott in the LMP2 AM class. We ride on board here with Stefan Vessels. make the way up towards turn number 9. Then Lamont staying well clear of the battle on that outside line, and Vessels rolling in very close behind as they make the way through turn number 9 and up towards 10 through to 14. As they make the way into the Maggots into Beckett's complex, it is the case Vessels will need to get the best possible run and get as close as possible for the simple reason he'll want that run down the hanger straight. You can see that he's taken a very late apex in order to get that top speed run down the hanger straight, but it's not enough. In fact, Paul Scott's had the better run of the two of them, and only now as they get about 3/4 of the way down the straight, you see the gap now starting to close up. Stefan Vessels has to bide his time and wait for another opportunity. It's not coming, but as they roll the way out to turn number 15, he's a lot closer now. Will he look for the move? We can see Paul Scott there covering it off as they navigate their way around the GT3 traffic there, and in particular that's Nigel Stock, and Stefan Vessels uses the traffic to his advantage by pinning Paul Scott behind the GT3 driver, and Vessels gains a place by being very tactical about where he puts the car, and good on that man, he's up a place, and now he's hunted down Sam Holman, who's only the best part 1.2 seconds up the road, and Paul Scott I think will be caught out by that. He won't be too happy given that he had nothing to do other than leave the car on one line and let Vessels take the place. But it just goes to show you that sometimes in multi-class racing you simply have to know where to put the car at the right time to gain the place. And right now Vessels chasing down to Holman, and Sam Holman has got Ed Lack right on his 6 as they make the way down the Wellington straight. You can see Lack's gone to the inside here, and Holman will yield the position, but he might lose some time in doing this. He will try and go outside to inside, but I think in the end he's still there on the inside, but he's not enough to go side by side through turn number 7, and this is costing him very dearly. As he makes it out the corner, he will have the toe of Ed Lack going up towards turn number 9, but the problem is, by not being close enough as they make the way out towards Copse Corner, it is one of those situations whereby Holman now has to worry about the fact he's got the third place driver in the same class in right behind him and bearing down on it, and it's not just any driver in second place in the championship, Stefan Vessels, who will want to go through and want that second place as a bare minimum, because otherwise Paul Walton will run away with 2 wins back to back and a pair of results which Vessels will not want to put in the bank account, but he'll be forced to as they make the way down towards turn number 15 once again. And the trio here of the LMP2 class drivers, with also Ed Lack at the 4-8 in the LMP2 Pro class as they come through. In this case, Holman holding on for the time being, but for how long before Vessels looks at a potential move? As we're hearing that Jonathan Collins has got it wrong, he's run off there by looks of things at turn number 3. We take a look back at what happened to Jonathan Collins. Going through turn 2 and into the braking zone for turn 3. Does the car get unsettled here through the corner? It looks like got on power a bit too aggressively, and the rear just lit up and rolled onto the roller variant. He's very fortunate there to get the car stopped before going into the tyre barrier, as we've had Jonathan Collins, great car control there to get the car back under order. Meanwhile, we return to the live pictures, and I'm hearing that Matthew Addy has been involved in a major incident. Where's Matthew Addy? Well, here he is. I'm not exactly sure what's happened, but we're about to find out. This is Matthew Addy in that same complex as what happened to Jonathan Collins. Now, where does it go wrong for Matthew Addy? Not into where it does. In fact, you can see there a wobble on the car as he came under braking into turn 3, and then the rear just snapped loose as he rolled through what's the right angle corner, and that Lamborghini just not in a happy place right now. Matthew Addy really not happy with that car, I don't think. But as they roll their way through the corners here, and we go back to live pictures, it is the case that Addy right now P3 in the GT3 and Apex Race Academy class. He'll still be happy that he's going to be ahead of Matt Emmons for the time being, although you can see Matt Emmons in the rear of the picture there as they make the way into Copse Corner. And right now the next gen racing with Sam Case's UK driver wants to hunt down his teammate and potentially get some points off his teammate. We'll wait and see how they play it out should they come together. And we see James Slates, the RP Motorsport driver, just ahead of Matt Emmons there as they make the way through turns 10 through to 14. Now 10 minutes remain, in fact 9 minutes remain by the time Emmons clears what is Beckett's, and as they roll the one around right now, it is the case. We'll have to wait to see if we have any last minute fuel stops here, whether anybody's got it wrong with the fuel calculations, or if there are any last minute battles which do kick off in fashion. And speaking of kicking off, we can see here Peter Herschel under pressure from Dan Skinner, as Skinner on the back of the Rhino Motorsport driver and looks up the inside into turn number 15. Herschel gives him the space to the inside, but covers it off very nicely as they make their way down to 16. Now he'll go full defence on the inside. It's a left-hander here, and he'll make Skinner have to work for it, but you can see that they've got GT3 class traffic in front, and this really hurts the Rhino Motorsport driver. He has to back off, and if Skinner can time this right, you can see there he'll be all over the back of the shells. They make the way into turn 1. It's going to be too wide, but in the end it is, because I think Skinner back it out there. 9, the GT3s would not be comfortable going 3 wide into turn 1, and as they roll the way up through right now, Skinner not able to find the move, as meanwhile I think Emmons there looking for the move on James Slates to gain track position. It's not class position, and he does indeed. He passes the IMB Raceway GT3 AM driver and goes up to P29 overall as they roll the way on around. Meanwhile, we come back to that battle for P7 in the LMP Pro class, and we can see here Peter Shot under a huge amount of pressure and not long to go. As they make their way out of turn number 6 and into 7, it is the case we've also got a battle building, as I see going to pit D. There was Daines. He went very deep, in fact, but we have got a battle building for P2 in the LMP Pro class, and here is your P2 driver, Robert Sunik, and behind him that is Gaz Williams as we run on board here with the gearbox of Robert Sunik. As he makes his way up towards turn number 1 once again, it is the case that Gaz Williams will know that he wants to finish P2 to be able to keep this championship campaign alive in terms of the hunt for the overall championship lead. But right now the Dutchman doing everything right, it would seem. Getting Matthew Hodges between the two of them, very critical on the run through turns 3 through to 5. That will just hurt Gaz Williams' pace a little bit, as he'll need to find his way around. But Robert Sunik taking a bit too much curve at turn number 5, but he's had to dodge a bit of traffic in the form of Lee Horn, so it may have worked out for the best. But right now, Sunik really opened that gap back up whilst Gaz Williams has to navigate the traffic, and it is the case the Next Gen Racing driver not having the traffic fall favourably at this point in the race. Meanwhile, as they make the way around, I do believe it is the case that Peter Schell had been in a bit of battle with Dan Skinner. They've had their first exchange of positions, and we take a look back at what happened. This was only moments ago, and Dan Skinner there right on the rear, coming down into turn number 16. He tried to go around the outside, and as they rolled on through there, just a rear seizing up a little bit. It was almost perfect, the inside right into 17. That was the first time from the Excite Racing driver. He was going for it, he couldn't quite make it happen. As we now return to live pictures, we have had confirmation that Phil McDougall has retired from the race, which is unfortunate. One of only a very limited number of retirements today. We have had, I believe, we've had 5 retirements. Phil McDougall, Davide Farbo, Richard Stanton, Vin Glenn and Mark Baker. And right now Peter Schell having a bit of a difficult time here trying to navigate his way past Gus Franken. And now he's got what is Skinner all over the back of it once again. But as they make the way on through, 6 minutes remaining, and the time is continuing to tick down here. One of the closest battles on circuit this is. Most of our battles now have spread out, to be fair, so we will focus on this at the time being as they make the way through Cops and up towards Maggots and Beckett. And as they head into Long Complex, it's going to be Skinner trying to go round the outside to inside. And Skinner gets it done initially, but Herschel's not giving this up. He runs a little bit over the runoff area there, and I think that might be a slight breach of track limits, but it is the case that Skinner is not letting it go, and he gets the place. But now it's all about the drag race down the hangar straight here, side by side. Peter Herschel tucks back in here, and he has not got the momentum. Skinner holds the inside. He's not going to let this go. He's been battling for this P7 for so long, and it looks like the runner motorsport driver is trying to go around the outside on the Excite Racing driver. They go side by side through 15, and Peter Herschel just knows where to place that car in this final sector, and Dan Skinner is now going to try and do the outside to inside. He tried only moments ago. He's got the inside, but he takes a little bit of the sausage curve there. It unsettles the car, and he's not quite able to seal the move. It's still Peter Herschel holds the position, but he has a slow down there for the track limits, which we were talking about earlier, and Dan Skinner takes the position in the end for a brilliant side-by-side battle, and an unfortunate slowdown which Herschel had to serve, as now only 5 minutes remain plus the final lap. And as that time continues to tick down, and the story is not long from over, it is the case that right now we look from this battle to our leader in the GT3 and IMB Raceway class, Lorenzo Gualtieri, who right now holds a 7.4 second advantage over main championship rival Tristan Di Brega, and this win will help him close that gap even more as he makes his way through turn number 8 here. It's looking all wrapped up here for Lorenzo Gualtieri if he can just keep it together for a couple of laps. We see there's Sam Holman coming on through in that P2 position and looking very good right now. Holman actually having broken away in the LMP2 AM class from Jonathan, not from Jonathan Collins, my apologies, from Paul Scott and also Paul Williams. And hold up a second, what's happened? Well, Stefan Vessels has had to come into the pit lane. We're just checking to see whether there's been any sort of incident. I think it may be the case. In fact, we just had confirmation. I think Vessels has had to jump to the pit. What exactly happened to Stefan Vessels? This was only moments ago. You can see the damage on the car already, and he's completely straight lined off the road. He's been in contact with Vessels. Well, I'm not especially sure what's happened, but he's had contact with another driver, and he's jumped to the pits. He's got back on out, but this is not going the way of the Racing Team Aston Blue driver. No way, sirree. It is going horrifically wrong, and for Vessels, it is critical points at the wrong hour. he is losing. And I wonder if he was involved in contact with another driver as part of that, or whether it was a mistake of his own doing. We can't have confirmation. We may hear about it later on. All right, now return to Lorenzo Gualtieri here with his windscreen wipers on. I think he knows that the cameras might be on him, and right now he is looking at very in control as he rolls around through with only 3 minutes to go. Meanwhile, we do look from him to a bit further down in the GT3 class, and in particular we look to Lee Horn here, who right now, the NXTGEN Racing with Sam Case's UK driver, running in the last of the running positions for the Apex Racing Academy GT3 Pro class, and well, he is over a minute behind Rizio Bocconi. Lee Horn having had that difficult start, it just has not worked out for him today, but still a lot to build upon going into the round at Suzuka in a week's time as he makes his way into turn number 9. But we look from him to our drivers up front and leading their classes, and we start off with Antonio Giovinazzi here, who right now with a 21.5 second advantage is leading very comfortably versus Gavin Gardner as they roll the way through, and well, the privateer here looking to be fully in control as he makes his way through turn number 18. Only a couple more laps to go, and right now the number 99 driver, I think, will be very pleased with the fact this is going to be 2 wins out of 2 here today at Silverstone, and it is going his way. But to be fair, whilst I don't think you'll get points counted for that, it will be the case that the winner's points in this race will go to Gavin Gardner, and the Verano Motorsport driver here really has put in a stellar performance, and it's building that momentum. And if we wanted any sign whether he was in the championship fight for the win of the championship in the Apex Racing Academy GT3 Pro class, this is the evidence right now, because Gardner is putting in the performances and he is building that momentum each and every lap as he makes his way on through. Not too long to go, and we look from Gardner here all the way up to our leader in the LMP2 AM class, Paul Walton, who right now making his way through the traffic. He's got a 10-second advantage over Sam Holman, and I think right now just trying to navigate his way through the very tricky technical turns 1 through to 5 and try to get around the traffic. As we see out there, that is Ed Lack pursuing him, and right now Walton, I think 9 at the points, are swinging his way ever more. But as he makes his way down and around, it is the case that he is having that advantage, and Sam Holman, I think, also will be feeling as though with this P2 after a difficult sprint race, he's still on that potential P3 in the LMP2 AM class standings. It is going back in his favour here in the second race. If he can get that momentum at Suzuka, I think he'll be well on his way, but we will wait and see. But meanwhile, going on to the final lap of this race is our overall leader and our LMP2 Pro Class leader. That is Chris Daines. The Danishman right now goes on to 1 more lap and with an advantage of 14.2 seconds. Does he hold the fastest lap in class? Is the question. Yes, he does. He holds on to that fastest lap, as I can see on my timing screens, which would mean, as I understand it, he'll pick up almost the perfect score, if not the perfect score. I'm not sure if he picked up the fastest lap in what was the sprint race, but it is looking to be going the Danishman's way, and right now he is only a multitude of corners away from effectively putting that championship, the LMP2 Pro Championship, firmly in his hands, albeit he'd have to drop major points from now to the finish to lose it as he rolls his way through turn number 7. And as he comes through, we do look down to Sean Cranley-Swash, who down in P25 overall, your leader in the Apex Racing Academy GT3 AM class. Well, it has been a race where it has just simply worked out for him. He had a difficult sprint, but he's brought it all back together, and we're a 26-second advantage over Jochen Seeger, who has found a way into that P2 position. He's looking very firm right now as he rolls his way on around, but we look from him to right now Jochen Seeger, who's under pressure from Matt Evans, who's closed up as they make the way down towards the Magnussen-Beckett complex. In fact, they come on through, and well, it is one of those situations where Jochen Seeger is under a lot of pressure here, and he'll be counting down that clock and hoping that the race is over sooner than later. And speaking of ending the race, well, here he comes, ladies and gentlemen. Here is the Verano Motorsport driver as he makes his way to the final 3 corners. We've said his praise already, but it has been another flawless performance in the feature, much like in the sprint. And as he comes through the final corner to take the checker flag, it is Chris Daines from Denmark who takes the win in the feature race here overall and in the LMP2 Pro class. 15 seconds clear in the end of Robert de Sunik, who as he makes his way for the final few corners. We can see here Robert de Sunik finding a lot of traffic as well, and he's got Gaz Williams right behind him, so it's going to be a sprint to the line. Can de Sunik get clear? I think he will, just in time to take that P2 ahead of Gaz Williams P3, and then it will be as he makes his way down the hangar straight here. It's looking good. In fact, we'll come to it very shortly because we've got another winner to crown first, and it is here Antonio Giovinazzi, who, as he makes his way into the final three quarters, he had a stellar sprint race, and how about this? He's following up with a stellar feature, where as he rolls through the final corner, it will be the privateer of Antonio Giovinazzi who takes the win in the Apex Racing Academy GT3 Pro class by a considerable margin of 25 seconds over Gavin Gardner. It will then be Paul Walton who comes on through to take the win in the LMP2 AM class. The RD Simsport driver gaining the points. Stefan Vessels has dropped, as we see there in the rear of the picture. That is, I believe, Jonathan Collins getting it very wrong. We've still got more drivers coming on through, as I think we've got Lucas Romano now making his way on down. He is the leader in what is the IME Raceway GT3 Pro class, and as he makes his way through the final couple of corners, it has been another pinpoint precision performance from the Belgian. He crosses the line, the winner for RP Motorsport Pro-Am, ahead of Dirt Bounce and Lammertwedder. And in the end, we do have Lorenzo Gualtieri, one of our last winners to come through. We've got another winner after this. He is our IMV Raceway leader in the GT3 AM class. And right now, if the question was, could he close the gap to his rival from the sister team, and that was Tristan Di Nobrega, the answer is yes, he can, because he'll come on through to make it another win and put the championship hunt firmly back on the Racing Team Astra Orange driver. As then we have Sean Cranny-Swash, as he comes through the final corner, will take the win for Verano Motorsport in the Apex Racing Academy GT3 AM class, and a great performance of the Verano Motorsport driver, really making up for what was a difficult sprint as he comes on through and takes that checkered flag. But my goodness, ladies and gentlemen, we've still got drivers coming on through to complete their races. Here is Dirt Bounce, P2 in what is the GT3 Pro IMB Raceway class, as he crosses the line, and as he makes one for, I think we've got a couple more to go, unless I'm very much mistaken. Well, actually, I think everybody has taken the checkered flag, and let's take you through those race results. So those race results, subject to stewards' inquiries and confirmation, it is the case that in the end, Chris Daines taking the overall win ahead of Robert de Sunic and Gaz Williams completing that overall podium. But we're going to bring you what is the results based on class to make things a little bit more transparent. So you can see here the results for our LMP2 Pro class. Chris Daines taking the win in the end at Silverstone in the feature race, round number 9 of the NXTGEN Racing PROTO GT3 Championship, taking the win by 16.7 seconds ahead of Robert de Sunic. And Gaz Williams finishing P3 on the podium, what was in the end right on the heels of Robert de Sunic, but just could not find a way to beat him to the finish line. Adam Delmont P4 ahead of Ed Lack P5, Jamie Dory P6 ahead of Dan Skinner, Peter Herschel and Phil McDougall. Phil McDougall with that unfortunate retirement 13 laps from the end. We then come to the LMP2 AM class. And we can see it is the case that Paul Walton making it 2 wins out of 2 with a win 13 seconds clear of Sam Holman, who held on to P2 in the end. A brilliant drive there from the Hollandton Racing driver, and Paul Scott rounding off the LMP2 and podium ahead of Paul Williams and Stefan Vessels. A difficult day for the South African driver, and now he's firmly got the pressure on him going to Suzuka, with Jonathan Collins, Jib Stanton, Michael Price there finishing the race and finishing the top 8. Richard Stanton and Mark Baker with those earlier retirements in the race, P9, P10. And then we come to the GT3 Pro Apex Racing Academy class results. And we can see here is the case that Antonio Giovinazzi making it 2 out of 2 here at Silverstone, ahead of Gavin Gardner by 25.5 seconds. And Matthew Hodges rounding off that podium and keeping Gavin Gardner and also Carmelo Martello honest, with Stefan Albanese P4, Martello P5, Lee Horn P6, Maurizio Marconi P7. And that unfortunate retirement early on for Vin Glenn. Then we come to what is the GT3 Pro IMB Raceway class. And we can see it's the case that Lucas Romano making it another win for RP Motorsport Pro-Am, 47 seconds clear of Dirt Bounce, ahead of Lammertwedder, round off the podium, Sean Scudder P4 and Gus Franken P5. And then in the GT3 AM Apex Racing Academy class, it is the case that Sean Cranny swashing in, taking the win for Verano Motorsport, a lap ahead of Jochen Seeger and Matt Emmons, who completed the podium, and Matthew Addy and Nigel Stock completed the top 5. And in our final class, it is the case in the IMB Raceway GT3 AM class. It was Lorenzo Gualtieri taking the win by 9 seconds over Tristan Di Nobrega. Arjo Kregel P3 rounded off the podium, ahead of Elwin Sykes, James Lates and Davide Favo. Well, my goodness, ladies and gentlemen, quite the class indeed. A fantastic racing action up and down the field. But now we must get ready for our post-race interviews with our selected drivers. We'll be back in approximately 5 minutes for those. Don't go anywhere. You won't want to miss them. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back and we're ready for our post-round interviews with our selected drivers. And we're going to be hearing from two of our LMP2 drivers, plus also two of our GT3 drivers today, a fair split. And we'll be starting off with Chris Daines, our LMP2 Pro Class driver, who picked up those back-to-back wins. And as we bring him into the interview room, let's hear from our winner. So, Chris, as you join us in the interview room, you said tonight, going into tonight's racing, you wanted to achieve the best possible score you could, get back-to-back wins and put the championship firmly in your hands. You've achieved it. How does it feel to have taken back-to-back wins at Silverstone?
Yeah, incredible, actually. I was over the moon with actually how many LMPs turned up tonight as well. That's the first thing I want to say. Merging the two lobbies, I thought was absolutely excellent. But with regards to the two wins, it was a bit more than I expected tonight. To be honest with you, I saw Gaz had a really good pace during practice sessions before tonight. But for some reason, I just found that extra bit of pace, which I didn't even think I had. So I was a bit sort of surprised at my own pace and consistency tonight. So yeah, really, really pleased. Really pleased.
Oh, that's absolutely brilliant to hear. And it all started, of course, in qualifying, where we rode on board for one of your early fastest laps of the session, absolutely flying around the Silverstone circuit. I have to ask, did it feel hooked up? Because it looked so smooth, but so fast and aggressive at the same time.
Yeah, I think with those temperatures, there was no grip out there. I mean, obviously there was grip, but it was just the car was sliding. It was very tricky early on. So in qualifying, yeah, to hook up a lap, which was without traffic and having the optimal amount of grip in those temperatures was really tricky. So you had to be smooth and not tires too quickly. But yeah, it was pretty perfect out there for me in qualifying. I must admit, I think everyone struggled to get a lap in because there was a lot of traffic out there, and I think I only managed to get a couple of really quick laps out there, out the 20 minutes. So yeah, very good. I'm sort of I can't wait to watch the stream back actually because I want to see actually how it panned out because I can't really remember qualifying that much.
Well, it's definitely fast and furious. And translating that into the sprint, we saw obviously controlling the rolling start. You nailed the start and broke away quite early on. And was that always the plan to try and get the jump on the field in the run to turn 3? Because everybody, Constantina's in quite heavily into that braking zone.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously, the plan was to get pole position because I know that turn 3, that left hairpin is just, it's crazy. I've done some racing around there last night, and the same thing happened. So I was looking in my mirrors, and I knew something would kick off. As respectful as everyone is on track, it's so difficult to get 17 LMP cars through that tight corner when we've got no ABS. You're on cold tires. The temperature is at 34 degrees C. It was all pointing towards a bit of an accident there. And yeah, so the plan was obviously just to try and pull away as quick as possible. But Wessels actually kept me on my toes. He's a very quick driver, Wessels, and I hope to be racing him next season in the pro category.
Oh, indeed, very fast. You had Vessels and Walton in hot pursuit behind yourself and Gaz Williams all the way from the start. And just with regards to talking about that dynamic quickly, I know that you're not meant to be racing with the LMP2 AM drives, but when you do have two AMs who are matching you for pace or being right there with you, does it sort of just make you feel as though you need to be on your toes a little bit, just in case they try and sneak a move up the inside?
Yeah, definitely. It is. I know we're not supposed to be racing them, but I think when they're, like for instance, Vessels, it was um, a couple of seconds, if not 1.8 seconds behind me at one point. And I knew if he got the slipstream on me, I know he'd probably go for a move because why wouldn't he? It's all part of racing at the end of the day. It is multi-class racing, whether you're in a different class or not. There's no rules to say you can't overtake me or I can't overtake him. But yeah, I think my main worry was I didn't really want to be um, hit on the rear end by an IMB driver. I think that was my main concern tonight. I think I didn't want that to happen. But I think everyone was really respectful out there with regards to the rules and the classes and so forth.
Oh, indeed. And then coming on to the feature race itself, of course, the reverse grid placing you towards the back of your class. We saw quite a rapid amount of gains from yourself on the opening couple of laps, but also a number of drivers seem to be involved in instance which you managed to dodge. Just take us through what happened on those opening 2 to 3 laps. It did seem as though you came through quickly and went charging after the lead.
Yeah, it was absolutely crazy to be honest because I said to myself, I said to my teammates, I'm just going to sit back and see what happens. But for some reason, as soon as the green light came on, I thought, sod it, I'm just going to go for it. And I just found gaps and moves all over the place. There was so much grip in that second race, in that feature race, that I had so much confidence on the brakes and then the turning, and I know there was some incidents up ahead, which I nearly got caught out in. Actually, I had to really get on the brakes, and it was a fast. I think it was the fast right-hander, the first fast right-hander, the first corner, which is at the start of the race pretty much flat out because you're not at full speed. And I think everyone went in there at full speed. And as soon as I saw that, I just slammed on the anchors and tried to take a really tight line because I knew everyone would be flying out to the outside of the circuit with the carnage. So, and yeah, just missed the accidents and made my way through. And the plan was to fuel save, but as I was catching the top five fairly quickly each lap, I thought there's no point fuel saving because with the pace, I could actually just pull a gap and not fuel save and try and pull a gap, I guess, on everyone rather than use that fuel saving method, which I've used in most races.
Indeed, and in pulling that gap in the end, placing the race lead and eventually the win firmly in your grasp, we now look ahead to Suzuka in not in 2 weeks' time, in 1 week time we go to Japan, and with the championship practically wrapped up, albeit you need to drop a huge number of points now to lose the championship. Does that change the dynamic of Suzuka, or is it the case it's still turn up and deliver?
Turn up and deliver. I want as many top threes as I can gather. Just for myself going into the second season. Hopefully if there is a second season, obviously I just I'm a racing driver. I want to win just like everybody else. So there's no need to lift off and coast for the rest of the races. I'm always going to be going for it. So yeah, I think a top three finish in one more race will absolutely guarantee me the championship. So I don't think it's absolutely secure yet. I could be wrong. It may be, but at the end of the day, as long as I get another top three in the next round, in the next 6 or 5 races, then I'm pretty much there. So yeah, full flat out and full throttle for the rest of the races.
Oh, indeed. Well, we'll have to wait to see whether you achieve your target at Suzuka in a week's time. But until then, congratulations on the back-to-back wins, Chris. Fantastic driving from yourself. And thank you for joining us, as always, in the interview room.
Thanks so much, Bill. Take it easy.
You too. So hearing that from Chris Daines, you can hear it in his voice just how happy he is he's pulled off the back-to-back win state and really managed the races, even qualifying to perfection. And well, I think it is the case that whilst he is setting that target and it's the driver's instinct or the racer's instinct to want to always win and deliver, I think as soon as he hits that target, he'll know that weight that's been on him since the start of the season in being that dominant form and really being the favourite, that weight will be lifted because he will have achieved the championship and he'll have got it effectively with 2.5 rounds to go if he gets the win in the sprint race, you can imagine, or at least the top three in that sprint race. But we'll wait and see whether that transpires in actuality in a week's time. But now we come from one driver who was right up there at the front all the way through to a driver who had a very mixed series of results today. But at the same time, it's a case I think he's had a result to be very happy of in the second race. We're going to be hearing from Sam Holman in the LMP2 AM class, and let's bring him in. So as we bring him into the interview room, Sam, it looked as though it was a very mixed night out there. A sprint race that didn't go your way and a P7 in the sprint, but in the feature, a recovery to P2 of a solid drive. Positive outcome overall?
I'm pleased. I don't think it was P7. I think it was more like P13, actually. It was diabolical. Had a clean start, felt confident, took it easy through turns 1 and 2, and just got a bit of a back end twitch coming out of 3, and then the car just snapped me going into T4, and I made contact with someone, spun me around, and I just got collected by everyone. So I didn't get meatballed, bit of damage, and then when I came around the next lap, I think somebody else got out of shape and sort of did the same and just went up the inside of me, and I had damage. I wasn't catching anyone after that, but yeah, really pleased with the feature. Yeah, really, really, really pleased. I'm not sure what happened to Stefan, but it wasn't Paul's night either. He's normally further up the field than that. So, to sort of be within a reach of him is encouraging. But I know that it's more of an off night for him rather than anything to do with my performance, unfortunately.
Well, at the end of the day, I have to say, I appreciate your honesty, but also sometimes you've got to seize those opportunities, and what an opportunity to seize. But dialing it all the way back to qualifying, mixed lobbies and a lot of cars out on circuit, just how difficult was it to find the space to do a lap at Silverstone?
Yeah, it was really tricky. I thought I got out quite quickly. took it easy, got past through GT cars, and I thought I'd be near the front, and I just kept going, and there was just traffic and traffic and traffic. So really tricky. Obviously there's people from the other lobby now that I haven't raced with before, so you have to sort of learn what everyone's doing. So it is what it is. It's qualifying. Everyone's in the same position, so you're not at an advantage or disadvantage. Everyone's got to pick their way around it. So that's part of the skill and part of the charm of endurance racing, really.
Oh, indeed. And in the end, putting in a lap which was not too far off for Paul Williams. In fact, between the two of you, you're only separated, if I look at my charts here, by 600ths of a second. And Michael Price qualifying in the end, literally only 200ths off. Well, a very close qualifying session. Do you feel the lap that you put in was the best you could deliver, or was there more out there? Because it was so close in the LMP 2am class.
Yeah, I think it was about where as good as I could do. I hadn't had a chance to do any practice this week, but Silverstone is literally my home circuit. It's I live 15 minutes from it, and I enjoy driving it on the sim as well. So I always enjoy driving around it. I could definitely be quicker, but it's a circuit that I feel comfortable at, and so I can sort of turn up and usually put in something semi-respectable. But yeah, I'm pleased. I don't think I could have done any better there.
And then coming on to the feature race, obviously covering the sprint and what happened there. In the feature, obviously you're in this rivalry now to be the best of the rest in the LMP 2am class, with Paul Scott, Paul Williams and Richard Stanton all trying to close the gap to yourself. But tonight, with that P2, that should just give you a little bit more space to Paul Scott and Paul Williams. I have to ask you, are they constantly in your mind in terms of where are they on circuit versus yourself, given how back and forth it's been?
It's the cliche, but when I'm out there, I don't think of it. For me, it's more about concentrating on the racecraft and just trying to do it. I'm working mentally on my game because I have lapses, and my crew chief came over the radio and said you've got 20 minutes left, and I've got Scott. I think Wes was at that point as well, nipping at my heels within a second, and you just got to get your head down and go for it. It's no secret that I'm not as quick as those guys on on every day and out pace. So I just have to sort of get my head down, put in consistent laps, clean laps, and just hope for the best, really. And just like I say, it's endurance racing. You've got to finish. So that's what I try and work on, is just consistency and just trying to get to the end of every race. And I was genuinely pumping the air when I crossed the line. I was really pleased with tonight. And considering I've put off going to Cornwall a day early and staying behind for this race, I'm quite glad that I did now.
Oh, that's absolutely brilliant to hear. And I'm so glad to hear with that fist bump into the air come the end of the feature race. Definitely a well-earned result. And looking ahead now to Suzuka in a week's time, a very tricky circuit, one that's seen the crowning and also dismantling of a number of championship campaigns in the past in real and sim world. How are you feeling for the Japanese circuit?
Yeah, I really like Suzuka. Again, probably not going to be the quickest out and out of pace, but it is one that I've driven a lot on sim. It's a track that I'm quite confident at. So I think I can turn up and hopefully turn a wheel and do what I can and just try and maintain whatever this small gap is I've got to the rest of the pack, and just see what I can do.
Well, we'll look forward to seeing how you get on at Suzuka in a week's time. But until then, congratulations on your results today, particularly that second place in the feature. And thank you as always, Sam, for joining us in the interview room.
Yeah, let's forget the first one. Thanks, Paul.
No problem. Have a lovely night.
You too, mate. Cheers.
So hearing there from Sam Holman, and you can hear that contrast in fortunes, but that happiness as well with regards to the second result in particular, and how in the end, really, it's just giving him that boost, I think, going into the next round, as though he can really take that fight through consistency. And to be fair, Sam Holman does have the nickname in this series of Mr. Consistent. He is the driver in the LMP 2am class who just seems to have this knack to bring those results out. And he's saying that in those endurance races, you have to finish them, and that's what he did to seal the result. But now we must come on to one of our GT3 class drivers, and we start off with Sean Cranley-Swash, the Verano Motorsport driver, as we are about to bring him on in. A P5 in the sprint race and a win in the feature race. It's a case that it's been a positive night, I think, for Sean Cranley-Swash, and let's hear his perspective, particularly with regards to that feature race, and of course from the Apex Racing Academy GT3 AM group. So as we bring him into the interview room, Sean, a rather challenging night within your class. 5th place in the sprint, a win in the feature. I'd say on the balance overall, a bit of an upward lift in the championship.
Yeah, I think that's going to put me in the at least the top 5 now, which is nice considering I missed the first 3 or 4 rounds. It was an up and down event tonight, though. Really didn't know where I was going to be. I just didn't feel my pace was there at all.
Well, dissecting it in terms of that pace, it's interesting you should talk about that. In qualifying, we did see across the GT3s, across the different classes, but focusing on your class, it was the case. You just about managed to out-qualify Matt Emmons, and also you had there behind the likes of Jochen Seeger and also Matthew Addy, but it seems as though Nigel Stockman was in a bit of a world of his own. Were you happy with that P2 in qualification, or do you feel there was more on the table?
No, that's probably more than I expected. The new Merc is very quick around Silverstone. It's acceleration out the corners. You just can't touch it with a Lambo at all. It just disappears as soon as you get through a corner. So I'm not surprised that Nigel had a good run in quali. But then quali, there was what 50 cars or something on the track for 20 minutes. It was hard to get a lap in. My first lap, I had to let past 10 LMP2 cars before I could make a run. So luck, I think, getting a decent time in the end for me.
Indeed, that luck translated into a good qualifying position for the sprint race, but it went a bit wrong in the sprint. Just take us through what happened from your perspective, because you were running quite well, and then when we cut the camera to you, you were off circuit, and that Lamborghini didn't look very happy.
No, well, what it was is my teammate in LMP2, Peter, he came up the inside into cops. It's fine. I let him through, and he went try to go the inside of the guy in front of me as well. But I don't think they saw each other or they got too close, so they hit each other and span. So I had the choice of taking to the gravel and going around the outside, or driving straight into the side of my teammate. So I just went all the way around the outside and had to kind of recover from last, really.
Indeed, it was unfortunate, but I think it gave you a bit of motivation going into the feature, because we saw from the start of the feature you kept out of trouble and really delivered that pace from the outset. Was that always the idea going into the feature, sort of make amends for what happened in the sprint?
Well, I knew I'd be at the front of the grid, which is always a great thing, being fifth out of five in our class. So I knew that everyone else had to get past me. But really, I was gifted by iRacing that win. Matt Emmons on the first lap, he got a time penalty when we touched on the last corner before the start finish straight. So that slowed him right down. So he was out of contention if I kept it on track then. And then was it lap 4 or something? Addy had exactly the same thing. He couldn't stop a time penalty coming through. He had to stop on track, and I went past as well. But if it wasn't for those two incidents to the guys there, I don't think I would have won. I almost got taken out by my teammate again, a couple of laps to go, but luckily we managed to stay on track. But other than that, it was quite a simple race, really. We just kept it on track. Didn't particularly push the car for the entire session. Made sure I got the pit stop right. Didn't overspeed into the pits, which I almost did. Had to slow right down to about 50 kph in the end. But no, it's just a kind of start to finish quite an easy race, really, because the time penalties that the guys got.
Indeed, their misfortune worked out to your fortune. At the end of the day, still, you had to bring the car home and not make any of the same mistakes or pick up any mistakes of your own. And carrying this momentum now to Suzuka in a week's time, how are you feeling for the Japanese circuit and trying to fight for that accolade of P4 in the championship?
Well, so yeah, I suppose my aim was always to get into the top 3. We had Nigel and Matt who were really kind of pulling away with the championship there. I think Matt Addy actually is catching them up, especially with the victory in Spa the other week. So the aim is top 3. I'm still on target to get top 3, I think, especially with Le Mans being double points at the end of the season as well. So if I get there, I'm happy. Suzuka in particular. Yeah, I think I can get a decent result there. It all depends on how good that Merc is, though. It really does.
We'll have to wait and see how it all plays out, whether you can take the fight to the Mercedes. But until then, thank you for joining us in the interview room, and congratulations on your results, particularly the win in the feature today.
Yeah, just one more thing before I go. I just want to say well done to the guys at Verano. P1 LMP, P1 in the GT3 Pro, and P1 in GT3 AM. I think that's the first time we've managed to do that in all 3 classes this season. So really well done to the guys.
Well, indeed, a very good spot there, and well done to Verano Motorsport for a trio of wins across the board there. That is a result, and I think the only other result like that we've seen is a father-son P1 across the classes in GT3 earlier on in the season. So I think you guys have technically made history today.
Brilliant. Love the sound of that.
Well, it's on that positive note that we do wish you a lovely evening.
Yeah. Cheers. Thank you, Paul.
So hearing there from Sean Cranny Swash with an absolutely good run of form in the second race, but it didn't quite work out in the sprint and having to avoid that contact. But also mentioned in there that it's the case of Verano Motorsport, and I really do appreciate Sean pointing that out, something I didn't notice. I do apologise for that. It's the case that Verano Motorsport making history by having 3 of their drivers, each one are winning in a different respective class. And well, that is an achievement. I wonder if they'll be able to replicate it again later on in the season. Perhaps at Suzuka, only time will tell. But now we must come to Matt Emmons, the final one of our interviewees, and we'll be hearing from the GT3 Apex Racer Academy driver. And in terms of night, which has been very mixed fortunes, and I think he might give us a bit more perspective on what Sean was referring to with regards to that slowdown in the feature. So as we bring Matt into the interview room, Matt, a bit of a mixed bag of fortunes tonight. A second place in the sprint and a third in the feature, but I think you might have been looking for a bit more out of the circuit. How do you feel Silverstone's treated you?
To be honest, really nice. As I said to you before the race, Silverstone's never been my friend, and I never can seem to get the best out of the car, especially in the sprint races. And yeah, I must admit, I'm quite happy with the result. I mean, I'm not happy with the feature race when I collided with Nigel. That's totally on me. I thought I had the room, and I apologised to him for the contact. But overall, yeah, I must admit, I'm happy with how it's finished.
Well, that's a great positive, and dissected it down into its constituent parts. We saw in qualifying an absolutely ram-packed field of cars out on circuit, 45 cars in qualification. It looked quite hard to get a lap together out there, regardless of whether you were LMP or GT3. Were you able to find the space you wanted, or was it a case you had to compromise?
I managed to find the space nearly every other lap, but I just kept getting caught with off tracks at Silverstone, with it being so unforgiving with its track limits, and it kept removing my lap times. I think I got a 1:59.6, which would have put us in go on pole, but I got an off track on the exit at the last corner, so it deleted my lap time. Overall, I was quite happy to get, I think it was 3rd or 2nd in class to start the sprint, so I was quite happy, considering I've had no practice as well.
Indeed, and then translating that through into the race with no practice leading into qualifying. It was the case we saw that second place in the sprint, but quite the back and forth battle, and in the end, really having to battle with Jochen Siegert on his return as well, and Nigel Stock to an extent. Just take us through how the sprint went from your perspective.
Honestly, I used it as a bit of a practice run. I thought, if I'm going to learn now how to push the car where the limits are, but also try and keep it steady, because I thought 3rd place, if I can keep 3rd, I'm happy. Nigel's not took a big chunk of points out of me, and then I saw Sean get taken out, or get caused in an accident, shall we say. So to get promoted to 2nd, I thought, right, I'll just put my head down and I'll go from there. As long as I can keep Nigel in my view, there's a chance I might be able to get the win, but unfortunately, it just wasn't to happen.
And then coming on to the feature, it was the case. It looked like a reasonable start, but then as we were just hearing from Sean Cranny Swash there, seems as though a bit of a slowdown penalty blunted your momentum, and then it just didn't go quite right.
Yeah. The one with Sean, yeah, again, I hold my hands up to that. It was a case of I didn't realise whereabouts he was coming through on the inside of the last corner on the opening lap. So door banged and it shoved me out wide, because I thought I'd better run out wide than try and stay on the track and take us both out on the pit straight and then cause a massive collision. Which gave me a 1 second slower down, which, yeah, it put me quite far down the grid. Then there was the contact with Nigel, and then having my own little incident of a spin on turn 1, which at first was horrible tonight. I just kept losing the rear end, but I just thought, if I've been here before, I've had the bad rate starts, take the early pit stop and then just go into qualifying mode. And looking at the lap times from the race to see for fastest laps and stuff, I think on average I was nearly a second a lap quicker than my peers in the AM class.
Indeed, it's one of those ones where the rocky start still the pace was going, and just double checking my timing boards with regards to the best laps put in by yourself and your peers, I would agree there. In fact, you were, in terms of the fastest lap, of 58.4. Nobody else in your class managed to 58 at any point during the feature, so definitely echoing that sentiment there. And with the pace that you're showing in the Audi, we have 3 rounds to go, and the championship fight between yourself, Nigel Stock, and Matthew Addy is only getting closer, round in, round out. How are you feeling for Suzuka in a week's time?
Good, in a hesitant way. Suzuka's one of them tracks. It's so unforgiving when you get it wrong. You have to get into a rhythm early. Qualifying is going to be so important with it being such a narrow and quite difficult track to overtake on. And yeah, I just know I've been in the situation before last season where it didn't go my way, shall we say. I know what I need to do, and I need to make it become reality.
Well, we'll have to see whether it does become a reality and it can go your way this time around in a week's time. But until then, congratulations on the double podium today, Matt. And as always, thank you for joining us in the interview room.
Thank you very much, Paul.
Have a lovely evening.
And you.
So hearing there from Matt Emmons, and I must admit I was a little bit surprised to hear he actually took an upbeat tone from today's results. I thought he would have perhaps wanted a bit more, but on reflection, when he said, as he mentioned in the pre-race chat that we had, that you didn't come into tonight with practice on the board, and therefore you had to essentially build up the pace in qualifying in the sprint race and use the sprint as a bit of a practice run for the feature. I think, oh no, I can definitely see where he's coming from with regards to that positivity, and he's definitely going to be one. Given the fact that in the end he was setting the fastest laps within his class by a considerable margin, he's going to be one to watch at Suzuka, because I think whilst Nigel Stock came away with a greater proportion of points, or just about matched him in terms of points, I think Emmons is the one with the momentum on his side, depending on how fast that Mercedes is at Suzuka. But we will wait and find out, as that is all we've got time for today, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much for watching. If you do want to know more about the Next Gen Racing community in terms of what we do, the series we run, and all other matters, why not check us out, our official website, that's nextgenracing.co.uk. Alternatively, you can go to our official Facebook group for further details. That's facebook.com/groups/nextgenracing. Also, a big thank you to our partners, our sponsors for this series, without whom it would not be possible to bring you this series. That is the Apex Racing Academy at apexracingac.com, and also IMB Racewear, that is imbRacewear.com. But now we must pack up our bags and get on the plane, because in a week's time, we'll be bringing you all the racing action live from the Suzuka circuit in Japan. That's right, we head to the Asia Pacific region for one and only round in the region, and it is at the venerable circuit, which makes or breaks championship campaigns, where it's in real world racing or simulated racing, and all of it will take place in round number 10 on Wednesday, the 22nd of June 2022. It's not too far away. Who will come out on top? We'll have to wait and find out. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, it's goodbye from us at Next Gen Racing. It's goodbye from me, for I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain of Spit. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.